225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News. Hello, are you the famous Sue?
The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Hello, good morning, hope you're well. Live from Washington DC, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And migrant bombshell tonight, Reform UK pledges to send detention centres to areas backing open borders. But in America, well, that policy is old news.
I took the border to them. I began busing illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C.
Standoff in the Strait. President Trump says US forces have shot down another 7 Iranian fast boats as tensions in the Middle East significantly escalate.
They let them have a nuclear weapon, or you'd have problems like nobody would believe.
The Met Police are pushing to bring Christian Broikner to Britain to stand trial for Madeleine McCann's abduction and murder. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, hope you've had a great bank holiday. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington is my panel, former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and the reporter for Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim.
Hi.
And in London, hello Reem, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. He's back Not sure where he's been. We'll probe that later on, but he's back on our screens. Hello, Benjamin. Thank you for your company. Right. What if the way to fix the migrant crisis is to send it to the people who say they want it, the Open Borders Brigade? Because in America, well, they've already tried that. And now Nigel Farage wants to bring that strategy to Britain. Reform UK says it will prioritise putting migrant detention centres in areas that back more of a, quote, open borders approach. And whilst this may seem like a radical policy for British politics, well, it isn't new, because back in 2019, Donald Trump floated the very idea. He posted on Twitter, as it was known at the time, quote, "We are strongly considering placing illegal migrants in sanctuary cities." Well, this is the same idea, except Donald Trump didn't fully go through with it, because even inside his own administration at the time, there were warnings that it could run into legal trouble, targeting specific political areas, court challenges, and also questions over whether it could be actually enforced. Except the idea wasn't dropped, it was just adapted, because Texas Governor Greg Abbott did this.
When Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refused to even come to Texas and to see the border crisis that they created, I took the border to them. I began busing illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. And we have continued busing migrants to sanctuary cities across the entire country.
You may remember migrants were sent into Democrat-run cities, including New York, Chicago and DC. And the reaction? Well, take a look at this from the then mayor of New York City, Eric Adams.
Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
So this policy isn't theoretical, it's already been tested. Trump backed down, Texas pressed ahead. But the big question is, would this work in Great Britain? In just a moment, I'll speak to a House representative from Texas about this. But first, I'm joined by the chair of the London Green Party, Eugene McCarthy, former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker, Shadow Defence Minister and Tory Mark Francois, and the journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Late Show Live. First of all, thank you for staying up at this hour. Appreciate it. Right, who should we start with? Benjamin Butterworth, let's start with you. Not seen you in a while. What's your take on this? Will it work? They did it in America.
Well, I mean, there is already an example of a Green Party MP complaining about having migrants housed in her constituency, which did seem a level of hypocrisy when they support it. There probably is something to be said for the idea that if you support having more people coming into the country and being housed that are migrants from unusual patterns, then maybe it makes sense. But actually, is it not quite unfair to say that very small areas of the country, so there are only, I think, 4 Green MPs, that they should get all of these people? It seems a bit vindictive, really.
Well, I guess the argument is at the next election, if you judge by the current polls, the general election, they would have more than 4 MPs. But let's get the thoughts now. You mentioned the Green Party there, of Eugene McCarthy, the chair of the London Green Party. Eugene, you were shaking your head at Benjamin's comments there. What's your take?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, that's a masterclass of PR. But then I actually saw the responses coming in from people, and actually, it wasn't really popular. I've seen Conservatives, Labour, Liberal Democrats, all sorts of people who Reform really want to bring into their coalition to win the next general election, looking at the map that Reform have put out, saying, oh my gosh, you're going to put migrant detention camps in my constituency. Meanwhile, Green Party voters, they don't really care. I mean, not to be funny, but this is a Green Party policy that we want to be a welcoming country and treat people with respect and dignity. This isn't going to dissuade people from voting Green. It will dissuade people that Reform really want to bring into their coalition, and I think the response has really shown that. I do want to point one thing out, which is that Robert Jenrick, who is now a Reform MP, was responsible for setting up the hotels in the first place, served in the Conservative government previously. I wonder if Reform will be planning on setting up any migrant detention centres in his constituency for the voters that voted him in.
Yeah, Eugene, you say that Green politicians and voters won't care, but I know Sadiq Khan, of course, isn't Green, but you could argue he's kind of, you know, borderline that kind of politics. He's certainly left of the Labour Party. He said today, reform is proving just how despicable they truly are. Do not allow them to gain an inch in your community. Do not allow them to drag our country towards division and fear, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, one minute Sadiq Khan is holding up a sign saying refugees welcome, and the next he's saying that asylum seekers in his community is despicable. So, which is it?
Well, I'm not going to defend Sadiq Khan for a second. I do think, however, the crux of this policy is beyond just putting them in sort of green voting areas. There is also the aspect that we are detaining, and they're very loose with terms at the moment, irregular migrants, people who've come here on small boats or whatever, people who haven't come here on small boats. We don't know the extent of what this would be in camps where they would be concentrated. Like, we don't know what that's going to mean. We don't know how humane it's going to be. We don't know anything about it. But it sets kind of a worrying precedent that a lot of voters are concerned about, including people that Reform really want to bring into their coalition, which, I mean, it's all over X at the moment. People are, even to the right of Reform, saying this is not the approach we want to take.
Yeah, I think that's probably, well, I'm not going to come back for Reform on that. Mark Francois, your take, please. What is the consensus amongst the Tories today off the back of this announcement?
Well, it's a gimmick. I mean, maybe the cameras returns aren't as good as they hoped. It's completely a gimmick. There are 5 Green MPs in the House of Commons after they won the Gorton and Denton by-election. And so are they going to put all these detention centres in 5 seats? I mean, there's just...
Well, this will be after the next election, wouldn't it? The general election.
Well, yeah, but we haven't got a general election yet. We're probably 3.5 years away from a general election. So what are they going to do? What will they do between now and then? Look, there's a fundamental problem with Reform. They are one club golfers. They've got one policy, which is immigration / race. Haven't got any policies on anything else that anyone can ever quote or remember. What's their health policy?
What's the race
What's their
part?
defence policy?
I'm not
Who's
familiar
their
with the race
defence
part, Mark.
spokesman, Ben? I've been asking this question for over a year. So
No
to come
idea.
up with a gimmick,
What's the
you
race
asked my
part, Mark?
opinion, I'm giving it you, Ben. I'm giving it you. It's midnight. You've asked me to come on
no,
late.
thank you.
It's a pre-election gimmick, and I don't think it's going to impress anyone at all. I think people see it for what it is.
I don't know why you're getting upset with me, Mark. I'm just asking you a question. I'm saying
I'm
when
not
you
getting
mentioned
upset
that
with you
their
at all,
policy
Ben.
is...
I'm not upset with you. I just said it's a gimmick, and the point I was trying to make is they only have one policy, and now they've even screwed that up.
You said that their one policy is immigration and race. I mean, the first I'd agree with. The latter, I'm a bit confused about. What's their stance on race?
Well, I think you can see that with regard to this. I'd like to know what their stance is on defence. I've been asking for a year.
Well, no. What is their stance on race? You just mentioned it. Zia Yusuf was the man to announce this. Was he Sri Lankan? What's their stance on race?
It's interesting you mentioned Zia Yusuf. I asked him on your colleague Jude's show in October when they were going to appoint a defence spokesman. I believe we're now in May. I'm still waiting for an answer.
OK, well, you keep going back to the defence spokesman. I know it's probably quite close to your heart, but one more time, Mark. What is their stance on race? You mentioned race.
I'm sorry, Ben. The first duty of
what is it on race?
The first duty of government, above all others, is the defence of the realm. Any party that calls itself a government in waiting, that has appointed a so-called shadow cabinet with about 5 or 6 people in it, any party that aspires to government should be able to tell us who would be responsible for defence in that government. Until they answer that question, I can't take them seriously on this or on anything else.
All right. OK, let's just say I agree with you. They're an absolute mess on the fence. You've mentioned race, though. What is their stance on race? Or would you like to take that comment back? Maybe you said it by mistake.
No, I didn't say anything by mistake. Overwhelmingly, they talk about
so
immigration.
What's their stance on race, Mark? Stop being a politician. Come on, mate. What's their stance on race?
Ben,
you mentioned it, not me.
Now, Ben, don't you get annoyed with me. They talk endlessly
All right.
about
Mark,
immigration.
viewers will be watching this, hearing what you said, and seeing you trying to wriggle out of whatever you
I'm
said.
not wriggling.
I don't look bad here.
Ben,
I'm asking
I'm not
you.
wriggling
I'll ask
from
you one more
anything.
time before I move on to Norman, who's been sat there very patiently.
I'm not wriggling from anything. They talk endlessly about immigration and asylum. A would-be party of government should have more than one policy.
Yeah, well, that's not race, is it? That's immigration. You're casting the assertion that they are somehow pro-skin colour. You're talking about race. Zia Youssef was the man to announce this. I don't know what you were talking about. I've given you plenty of opportunity. Norman Baker, what's your take on this policy?
Well, I agree it's a sort of pre-election gimmick. I think Mark as far as right on that front. I also think it's nasty, it's vindictive, and I think it's un-British. And I think it crosses a dangerous line. It may well be playing politics and in the end to try and get some votes, but that's not the way we should approach matters involving individual humans and people who are often vulnerable. There is a serious issue about people coming in this country that needs to be dealt with. And I've set out my views many times, Ben, on what we could do to try and deal with the situation. I don't want to get involved in whether it's Reform or Green Party. I think it's pathetic, frankly, to have that sort of argument put forward by Reform attacking the Green Party. I'm not defending the Green Party at all, but I think it's pathetic the way they put that forward. But look, let's just see what was said today in this statement by Reform. They're talking about deporting 600,000 people. 600,000 people. They're talking about a group of people, not individuals who are individually assessed, but just because they all be lumped together, deporting them all. Secondly, they want to establish a UK deportation command to round them all up. That would involve, I don't know, some sort of new police force to round these people up. And thirdly, to put them into camps. I don't want to overplay this, but treating people as one group, not as individuals, having them all rounded up by a new police force and putting them in camps reminds me, frankly, of 1930s Germany. And I think it's a very, very dangerous line to go down from Reform. They're doing so for short-term political gain, but I think it's very, very dangerous indeed. And I think we should have nothing to do with it.
Okay, sorry, Norman, you cut out there. Did you mention Germany? Are you suggesting they're Nazis?
I did. I'm saying to you, asylum seekers here, Jews in the 1930s, the UK deportation command now, the SS in the 1930s, camps to put these people in, concentration camps in the 1930s. That's the way we're going on this particular policy. It's very un-British. We should all reject it. We have to deal with a sensible problem of people coming into this country on small boats and everything else. I put forward my ideas as to how we deal with that, but this is not British way of dealing with it.
Okay, I would just suggest that the Reform's suggestion is building detention centres to process their asylum claims before either deporting them or letting them in, whereas
that's not what they say, Ben.
Sent them to gas chambers. But
no, Ben, I'm not.
But that's just me.
I said it's a slippery slope. I didn't say we got there yet. It says a slippery slope. And if you look at when camps were started in 1933 in Germany, it was not about gas chambers either. It was about putting people there who were criminals. This is a very serious matter, and they're not talking about processing asylum claims. They're talking about rounding up people who they call illegal and deporting them. There's no question of justice or assessment. They call this Operation Restoring Justice. There's no justice. They're talking about removing the opportunity for legal challenges to what they're putting forward.
Okay. Mark, very quickly, last question to you. Do you think this is akin to Germany, a slippery slope? What's the Tories' stance on that kind of assessment?
No, I'm not. You know, I've known Nigel Farage for years. Nigel Farage is not a Nazi. So I'm not accusing him of what Nigel is inferring. Sorry, Norman is inferring. But I do think, I'll say again, I do think the policy is a gimmick. And I think people will see that for what it is. And we're starting to see some evidence of people who don't really like Reform much, even if they're not normally Tories, being prepared to vote tactically to keep Reform out. And we'll only find out on Thursday night to what extent that's happening across the country.
OK, really appreciate you all. Thank you. Benjamin, you're sticking with us, so thank you very much. Eugene, last word from you very quickly before I let you go.
I found quite good deal of agreement here across the panel. I think it's a shameless gimmick that won't work, hugely expensive, hugely demeaning.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you all. Eugene McCarthy,
thank you for having me.
Baker, Mark Francois and Benjamin, thank you very much. Right, there we go. Slippery slopes, reform a race party. I mean, I don't know.
Well, look,
I don't know what we're doing here.
Obviously, the intention behind this policy is you Green voters say you want open borders, you say you want all of these immigrants. Well, here are the immigrants. And of course, it's sort of that aspect of it. I dislike the policy, not for those reasons, but I dislike it because it is probably going to waste an enormous amount of taxpayer money. So instead of housing these asylum seekers in the most cheap accommodation, or indeed the place that is going to be the most efficient, the easiest place where the accommodation will be the cheapest, or of course the most efficient use of taxpayer money, instead of doing that, they're going to try and do it in green areas. Now, if your priority is to get rid of the asylum seekers as quickly as possible, if that is truly reform's policy, then this idea where you're going to try and be vindictive towards Green voters, I don't think is very nice. It also not very efficient for taxpayer money. It also begs the question whether or not the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister for all, not just for those who voted for him. So I would, ask the question: what about the, perhaps 10 Reform voters in that Green Party area who then have to suffer as a result of that, if that is indeed what they believe the consequences of this policy is? If it's supposed to be punishment, they are punishing British people as a result. And then the question is, okay, is this going to be the best use of taxpayer money if the attempt is to get rid of the illegal migrants as quickly as possible? If that's the goal, this is not how you do it.
So where should they be detained then? Or would you let them walk the streets still?
Well, it's not what I would do, it's what Reform is saying that they would do. And what they are saying is, if you want to ensure that reducing illegal migration, or indeed deporting them, is what your priority is, you shouldn't be then spending more and more money trying to house them in areas that perhaps may be more expensive than other areas.
So it would be, I would argue, it would be less expensive housing them in a massive detention centre than putting them up in hotels and HMOs.
Yeah, but the cost of the land is different depending on where you are, right? And of course, a lot of these Green Party voters. Do you know
how much the government is spending on migrant accommodation over the next 10 years?
But that's not the point, Ben. The point is,
you're just talking about cost of accommodation.
Yes, it is extraordinarily expensive, and I don't like taxpayer money being spent on this stuff. The question is, if the government have a choice between building a detention centre in Brighton or building a detention centre elsewhere where the housing is far less expensive, then of course going with the cheaper option where the land is cheaper, where the cost for taxpayers are cheaper, is obviously the best thing to do. Not just going, well, here in Brighton, here's where the Green Party voters are, we're going to try and punish them. Surely the goal is...
I don't think it would make that much of a difference. If you have 15 detention centres across the country and you build one in Brighton or build one in Burnley, it's probably going to be...
We could be talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds here.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, you know that's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, is it? We're spending 15 billion quid, Reem, over the next 10 years housing illegal migrants. 15 billion pounds in hotels and HMOs, and you're worried about...
Well, I think every penny of taxpayer money being wasted is a waste. I think it's immoral.
Matt, you'll take.
We're talking about costs. The greatest cost you can give is your life. And just ask the family members of Lincoln Riley, who was killed by an illegal immigrant here in the United States. The UK is facing similar challenges that the United States faced under President Biden, and that is that you have an open border policy that allows people to come into the country who have been unvetted. Right now what matters is speed, and you can debate how to do that, but the bottom line here is the UK's current policies have not been working. Just like in the United States, President Biden's policies did not work. Under President Trump, he has secured the border with speed. The first thing you have to do is secure your border. Then you can focus in on, we're going to organize people, whether that's through hotels or through this sort of component where you had kind of these centers, if you will. In the United States, ICE has had centers and been going through a speedful process of getting people who are in the country, in the United States, out of the country. And the biggest reason why is because it is a national security crisis. When you have people coming into the country who you do not know who they are, who they've not been properly vetted, that is a major problem that has led to loss of life, and it's a big, big challenge for the UK.
So surely then we should, if speed is the goal, build the detention centres in the cheapest and most efficient way.
You keep going back to that. I don't mean to patronise you. I don't know about your knowledge on sort of land and how much land costs and so on, but you're talking literally a difference between hundreds of thousands of pounds, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. I just told you the budget...
It's also about speed, about time. Is it more quickly to build a detention centre somewhere else other than in a Green Party area? That's the question. And if that is the case, if speed is the goal here, this this idea of building it in Green Party voting areas is absolutely not the right approach.
Well, I don't think the taxpayers are going to be comfortable, frankly. I want to speak for all the taxpayers in the UK, comfortable with putting people here who are in a country illegally in hotels.
Yeah.
You know, the bottom line here is that these centers should be appropriate. The cost
the
here,
cheapest and most efficient.
Listen, I think you have to get you. I think you have to get you security, and I think that the bottom line here, you're debating whether it's through centers or hotels or whatever it is, deporting people from a country who are there illegally is the #1 priority for national security.
Yeah, it also makes me laugh today off the back of this reform announcement. All that, I'm not going to name the parties, but you know, parties to the right of reform, maybe even some centrist parties who are saying, "Oh, this is a stupid idea," absolutely crying into their tissues about detention centres, when all they've been banging on about for the past 6-7 months or so is detaining and deporting. Like, that's the only thing you bang on about. And as soon as Reform announce it, they say, "Oh, this is an awful idea. What a betrayal of the British people." I mean, come on, spare me the faux outrage. Let's speak to Republican Texas House Representative Steve Toth. Steve, thank you for joining us. This happened in the United States, didn't it? We had Governor Greg Abbott literally busing illegal migrants to sanctuary cities. How was it received? Did it work?
It's so funny because initially everyone pushed back on it, but it was absolutely brilliant on the governor's part to do this. I'm so thankful that he did it. Look, the only thing that elitists want right now is to make sure that if they come here, they stay among the great unwashed, that they don't come and have to rub shoulders, right, with the elitists that wanted them brought here in the first place. So migrants for thee, but not for me.
And what's happened now? Has there been any legislation to stop that kind of thing, or can Governor Abbott still do it if he wants to? What's the state of affairs now?
He can absolutely continue to do it, and the left has pushed back on him time and time again, and the courts have stated very clearly that he has the capability of doing this. Look, we're not forcing these people to do this. We're not taking them at gunpoint and forcing them to get on buses to go and to live in New Jersey or New York or Michigan. They have the freedom to not do this. We just incentivize them heavily to do this.
Okay, fine. And I just wonder, well, the border is shut now anyway. I went down to the border in September, so you've got no illegal migration, so I guess it can't be done anymore anyway? Is that right?
Well, I mean, we still have gaps in the border. We still have to be vigilant every day, making sure that the border stays tight and secure. But look, at the end of the day, these people are coming here and they're bankrupting America the same way that they're bankrupting the United Kingdom, the same way that they're bankrupting Canada. In Canada, there's a story that came out today about a 79-year-old priest, Father Holland, and he broke his hip, and now the people of Canada are encouraging him to have medically assisted suicide. Why?
Oh,
because
right.
we have more people here than the system can handle.
Okay. Do you want to just hang on the line, because I'd like to get the thoughts of Spencer Critchley, the political analyst, and I'd like you two to have a chat as well. Spencer, good evening. Thank you for coming back on the Late Show Live. Hope you're well. What do you make of this proposal in the UK, Spencer? Again, we saw it in the United States. Texas did it, and so on. Governor Greg Abbott, what's your take?
Well, I think I can comment with a little more knowledge on the situation in the U.S. From what I see of what's being proposed in the UK, it does look very similar to what Greg Abbott did in Texas. And, you know, look, there is a legitimate issue, a legitimate discussion to be had about the limits of immigration, and there are good faith arguments to be made on both sides. That's certainly not what was going on with Greg Abbott. That was pure demagoguery. And the way you can tell in his case in particular is he used to be a run-of-the-mill, more or less conservative but centrist in the sense of moderate in his outlook, Texas Republican. But around about a decade ago, around the time that Trump had such success by exploiting people's fear of immigration, Abbott apparently saw which way the political winds were blowing and decided to set sail in the same direction with all sails flying. And, you know, Trump in many ways can't help but confess what's really going on. You can find countless examples of this. And he did this explicitly with Greg Abbott a little over a year ago at a political event. And he was talking about what Abbott did with immigration and said, you didn't do that for the politics. You did it because you wanted to do the right thing. But it sure as hell worked for the politics. And Abbott smiled broadly in response to that. If people are going to pursue, as I say, the legitimate issues connected with immigration, they can do that without resorting to dishonesty and manipulation and hyping what is a legitimate problem up to and is a supposedly existential threat to the nation. The point of that, as I say, is demagoguery. A demagogue makes people feel like their nation is in dire danger and gets them to respond in a way that doesn't serve the interests of the nation, but serves the interests of one person, the demagogue.
Can I say something now? I mean, how long do I have to listen to this garbage? You're a hypocrite.
Okay, so we can discuss this. We can discuss this, but we can discuss this. But you're only going to make my point if you start off. If you start off, excuse me, sir, you can keep trying to talk, and I'm sorry, you can cut me off
one at a time because no one can hear you. Well, stop a sec.
I'm sorry.
All you want at the end of the day, bankrupting the United States of America. The same way it's
no one can hear you.
Sorry, that does not work.
Sorry,
you're just making my point.
Turn his mic off.
If somebody disagrees with you and your first resort is to call them garbage and claim that
I'm muting you for a minute.
You have called Greg Abbott's motives into question. You have said that he's only doing this for political reasons, when the reality is that this is pragmatic. This is the pragmatic and right thing to do. Blue states that want these people should give them the opportunity to do it. We didn't hold a gun on to anybody's head and said, get on this bus. We didn't make anybody get on a bus. They went to where they wanted to. We said, you can go anywhere in the United States. Where would you like to go? We'll provide free bus travel for you to get there, as well as food and money for them once they got off the bus. Here's the reality. You don't want these people. You hate these people. You disparage these people the same way that woman prior to said, let them stay in the cheap areas, not the expensive areas where we're going to have to put up with them. This is the height of hypocrisy on y'all's part.
So
okay, Steve, I'm going to pass over to Spencer. Please don't interrupt because nobody at home can hear it. Spencer?
So you're accusing me of hating immigrants, and here we go again.
You do, you absolutely
possibly know? I don't believe we've ever met before. I don't think you have any way of knowing what's inside my mind.
How can you know what Greg Abbott believed? Or how can you know what Greg Abbott thinks?
Excuse me, sir, I'm talking.
Greg Abbott.
Excuse me.
How can you accuse Greg Abbott of doing this for political reasons?
No.
You don't know Greg Abbott.
Excuse me. The way I judge Greg Abbott's motivations is by looking at his actions. So this is far from pragmatic. This is far from a pragmatic solution. And to claim that a city like New York hates immigrants strikes me as absurd, given that New York is one of the greatest immigrant cities in the history of the world.
Legal immigrant. Legal immigration. My grandparents came through.
We've got to wrap up, chaps.
Legal immigrant.
Excuse me. You know, it may be inconvenient to you if I'm able to develop a thought, but I'm going to insist on doing it.
I think you're really struggling.
I would maintain that there are pragmatic solutions. Joe Biden had immigration down to multiple decades lows by the end of his presidency.
Joe Biden had people
during his
crossing
administration, the Republican Congress
uncontrolled
refused to pass immigration reform.
Guys, thank you very much.
On the instructions of Trump, who said we need this issue.
Republican Texas House Representative and political analyst Spencer Critchley. Thank you both, guys. Appreciate it. gbnews.com/your say. Right, what's coming up? A Green Party spokesman has said on this policy, Reform keep making abhorrent announcements in attempts to distract voters from the fact they want to privatise our NHS, roll back workers' rights and hand out tax breaks to their billionaire backers. Farage, the establishment stooge, says the Greens, puts forward this disgusting idea as if it is a serious policy. Greens are focused on building council housing, fixing our public services and bringing down the cost of living. Labour Party Chair Anne Turley said this grotesque policy reveals Reform's contempt for all voters, including their own. Threatening to punish places where people don't vote your way is a betrayal of basic democratic principles, wants to drive a toxic wedge between our communities. The Lib Dems have weighed in as well. They've said a squabble between two parties who don't have the solutions to bring about a safe, fair and controlled asylum system in our country. Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney, also said the plans are an illustration of the dangerous nature of Reform's politics and an attempt to divide communities. And Tory leader Kemi Badenoch had this to say.
This is an election gimmick. This is an election gimmick the Reform are doing. We have an actual real plan, leaving the ECHR and a borders plan, including having a removals force. We've explained how we will fund it. If people want to see a proper plan on immigration, the Conservative borders plan is the real thing, not just this silly election stunt.
GBnews.com/Your Say. I just think, as I said before that debate just there, I think it's very curious how every man and his dog, every party from left to right say this is disgusting. Isn't it vile? Don't know. Maybe they're a bit concerned. Maybe they're a bit worried that they didn't get there first. I don't know. GBnews.com/Your Say. Luna, hello Luna. You said we already have immigration detention centres in the UK where migrants are held when they've had their asylum claims rejected or they've overstayed their visas. Yes, absolutely right. Gaz said maybe the migrants welcome here signs will serve as a visual marker for future migrant detainment sites. Yes, that's what I think Reform are aiming for. And Cassandra, hello Cassandra, good morning. You've said, isn't it funny that the people who say they welcome mass migration get all hot and bothered when it's suggested they are housed in their areas? Exactly. Who's that Green MP who did the same? She was kicking off and rejecting a asylum hotel in her area. Just hypocritical. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. The US Supreme Court has temporarily reinstated nationwide access to an abortion pill, blocking a ruling that threatened to upend accessibility of the pill involved in nearly 2/3 of pregnancy terminations all across the country. Elsewhere, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is recovering from pneumonia, his spokesperson has said. His condition is understood to be critical but stable. Elsewhere, Britney Spears, the former pop star, has pleaded guilty to reckless driving involving alcohol and drugs. The 44-year-old had been charged with a single misdemeanor count of driving under the combined influence of alcohol and at least one drug. A representative for Britney said she had voluntarily checked into a rehab facility after her arrest. Back in Britain, Buckingham Palace has announced Princess Eugenie is expecting her third child with her husband Jack Brooksbank. The couple, who will welcome their new addition this summer, are already parents to 2 boys. The King is said to be delighted. And very good luck to them. Congrats to Jack and Eugenie. They've got 2 lads, so I wonder if they're hoping for a girl, probably. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
It's in our national interest to be closer to Europe.
The true cost of the Prime Minister's reset with Europe has been revealed as Brussels demands a yearly fee. I know what I would say to them. But first tonight, the Met Police is seeking a UK trial for the suspects in Madeleine McCann's alleged abduction and murder. Massive story, big development. I actually worked on this for a couple of months at my old newspaper in Portugal and Spain. I've got some thoughts on this German who is suspected of bringing Madeleine to harm. More on that in a second. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. That was the White House a bit earlier. Lots of journalists running towards, no, not the vending machine, but there was reports of a shooting outside the White House. The press briefing room was thrown into lockdown because there was a shootout between an individual outside and a Secret Service agent. No fatalities. Everybody's fine, as we understand so far, but more on that very shortly. First, though, big story. We could be about to see a major breakthrough in the disappearance of young Madeleine McCann. The Telegraph is tonight reporting that Met police detectives are trying to bring Christian Breukner, he's a German, to Britain to stand trial for the abduction and murder of Madeleine, who was 3 when she went missing from the Praia da Luz hotel in Portugal on the Algarve in 2007. So Breukner, he was living a mile away from the hotel at the time of her disappearance, and he was previously named as the prime suspect in her disappearance, but charges weren't brought before he was released from prison for a separate offence in Germany last year. With me now is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on The Late Show Live. I spent a lot of time at my old newspaper working on this story in Portugal, in Germany as well, especially when Breukner's name came up. I've got my thoughts about him, and I think the Met Police obviously do as well. However, how easy is it going to be to extradite him over here? I think there's issues, isn't there, with the EU?
Yes, there certainly are. Christian Breukner's previous convictions speak for themselves as to the kind of character that he is. But of course, if he were to stand trial, he wouldn't stand trial on the type of person he is. He'll stand trial on any evidence that's been gathered in relation to the disappearance and the murder of Madeleine. And of course, that evidence, as it would appear at the moment, falls short of the evidential bar that needs to be reached, not only in Germany, but perhaps in the UK. I did note very carefully that the language coming out of Scotland Yard tonight did include the word may. They may try to extradite him should there be sufficient evidence. It would be a massive development if that happened. Germany do not extradite their citizens to non-EU countries, so that's a massive hurdle that's got to be reached. And of course, yes, the evidence has to be there.
It's been 19 years, Peter, since Madeleine went missing in Praia da Luz. The Germans, at one point a few years ago, said that they thought they had indisputable evidence that Christian Breukner did it. However, they've obviously not been able to nail him on it. I just wonder what the Met think they have that the Germans don't, because they have been working together, and indeed the Portuguese police. They've all been sharing information and trying to nail whoever abducted Madeleine, but the Germans are quite certain that she is also not alive. So there must be some evidence that we're not hearing about.
I suspect, because we've got 3 different jurisdictions at play here, I suspect that perhaps not everybody has been completely open and honest with each other. There may have been some secrets perhaps that have been guarded by one country's police or another's, but regardless, they need to come together I think there needs to be a summit whereby everything is declared from every single country. That'll take some time, so that a collective evidence body can be put together, and then perhaps lawyers can look at it and say, is there sufficient evidence? Is there a realistic chance of achieving a conviction against this man? And then if so, which is the best jurisdiction in which to put him on trial? It shouldn't be about egos. It shouldn't be about one law enforcement body choosing to be more successful than another. It should be about a joined up European-wide search for the truth and gathering evidence to put somebody on trial. That's the very least that little Madeleine's memory deserves.
Yeah, bless her, sweetheart. Just finally, it goes without saying, but what do you think Kate and Jerry McCann would be feeling right now, knowing that maybe, possibly, there's a chance that Bruckner could be extradited and put on trial at the Old Bailey?
Well, I can't find myself standing in their shoes and imagining the hurt that they must have endured for the last 19 years, other than to say I have spent a lot of time with people who have lost loved ones to murder. And in my experience, spending time with these people, it's never something that you get over. It is merely something that you learn to live with.
Yeah, well said, Peter. Thank you very much. Bruckner, I can tell you this, he is a wrong 'un. He was jailed in Germany for rape. He's been accused of molesting little girls before as well. He's got form. He also has form for keeping videos of his crimes as well. One woman he raped a few miles down the road in Praia-da-Luz, around about the same time as Madeleine McCann, just maybe a few hundred yards down the road. I think she was a pensioner from the top of my head. She was in her 80s. He broke into her apartment, beat her, sexually assaulted her and filmed it. And I know for a fact the German authorities found the video of that. They found videos of other assaults as well on other people. So, yeah, I just wonder if the Germans, when they came out a couple of years ago now, saying they had evidence that Bruckner was linked to Madeleine McCann, I just dread to think what they found linking Bruckner to poor Maddie. But there we go. We'll keep you updated with that development. Reem, as the Brit here, 19 years this has been going on. And I know the parents, Kate and Jerry, get a lot of stick for what happened. And I just say to that, it is every parent's worst nightmare for that to happen. Your poor 3-year-old disappear, and I'm quite sure they kick themselves every day. I mean, that's an understatement, kicking yourself. So I don't see the point in going over that again. But 19 years of pain and hurt.
I know, and Madeleine would have been about my age if she was still here today. And
How old are you now?
That I'm 23. So I remember it being all over the news. I mean, I was very, very little, but my parents were so deeply upset. And I think that so many parents across the country remember the Madeleine McCann case. They remember seeing that little girl's face on their screens at home and realising, you know, what kind of dangers there are out there and how difficult it can be if you leave your children alone. So I mean, I think that it will be an incredible situation if we do see the end of this case and the closure of this case, and so the parents and the families can have closure, but only time will tell if we'll see that.
Matt, are you aware of this case?
Aware of it. You know, look, it's frustrating, obviously, for the family members who've been impacted by this. I think you hit the nail right in the head. You know, and part of this is that the justice system's biggest responsibility is to ensure justice. And right now, obviously, you're seeing challenges with extradition. You know, countries have different laws, obviously, around that. I've seen some reports that maybe they try to, you know, push this towards a trial, and you know, Portugal. You know, who knows what's going to end up here? But the bottom line here is justice needs to be served. You know, the most frustrating thing for a family member is when they feel like they can't get the justice because of the laws that get in the way. And you have to respect countries' laws, but this is a real challenge here right now, obviously, with what's taking shape.
Can you think of any US cases where a child's been missing for maybe 2 decades and there was an answer, some conclusion to it after? Is anything off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, there's been many cases where people go missing. I mean, you know, look, we're dealing with one situation that took place in Arizona, obviously. It's not a child, it's an older mother. You know, in that case, you had a celebrity involved. But the bottom line here is whether it's celebrities or just everyday citizens, you know, you want justice to be served. And, you know, the problem is when this dates back so long ago, you know, the evidence, it's harder to trial, you know, it's harder to get to facts and evidence. You're not dealing with the same kind of DNA evidence that you have today. So time is the worst thing in these kind of cases. hopefully, we all pray, of course, that justice can be served here.
There's something so upsetting about it being a child, though. The idea that this 3-year-old girl was innocent and just went to bed when her family were on holiday, and that she never got to live her life. And I do think about the fact that she could have lived the life that I've lived. You know, she could have lived her entire life ahead of her. She could be married with children by now. That's how long this has gone on for, and I really do hope the family get closure.
Yeah, really sad story. And Maddie's got siblings as well. I think her sister and a brother, and I think, was it the brother some years ago, spoke out about feeling guilty about the whole thing, just carrying that. Okay, well done. Losing a sibling and then having the guilt of thinking maybe, you know, of course they're not to blame, but thinking maybe they could have done more to kind of prevent it.
They were children themselves, right? They were also children. They were in the room. They couldn't have done anything, but it's very, very upsetting. And I think that, of course, you end up carrying that guilt with you the rest of your life because you lost your sister and you never got to see her again.
Yeah. Okay, gbnews.com/you'll say. Lots of you still, you know, rightly, I guess, making critique of Jerry and Kate McCann as parents. Again, I'll just say they know they made a mistake and they'll have to live with that for the rest of their lives, and I'm sure even on their deathbeds they will be thinking about that. So I just don't see the point of going over it. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
Can't let them have a nuclear weapon where you'd have problems like nobody would believe.
Oh, well, back to the Middle East. There's been yet another significant escalation between America and Iran tonight. Yes, another one, as the ceasefire looks more fragile than ever. But also on the show tonight, a key update in that shooting right here, which in, Washington, D.C., which saw the White House a bit earlier and the press puts into lockdown. I was there. President Trump was there. He's safe. He's well. I'll tell you all about the details in just a sec. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath.
We'll be across it all.
Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Right, the White House was put into lockdown tonight when President Trump was giving an address to business leaders. In a statement, the Secret Service said Secret Service personnel are on the scene of an officer-involved shooting at 15th Street and Independence Avenue in Washington, D.C., a few blocks down the road from the White House. One individual was shot by law enforcement. Their condition is currently unknown. It's also being reported that, according to the Deputy Director of the Secret Service, the shooting occurred shortly after J.D. Vance's motorcade passed through the area. The individual was first identified by plainclothes officers who said he looked suspicious and was believed to be carrying a firearm. Cops then called in to get support from ununiformed agents. When the individual saw the agents, the suspect is said to have fled on foot, drawn his gun and fired. So there was a bit of a shootout. Right, let's get the details from former FBI Special Agent James Hamilton. James, what do we know about this? How is the suspect? And I understand as well a juvenile was maybe grazed by a bullet or a ricochet. Just tell us, please.
Yeah, that's the understanding. We have one subject injured at the hospital under arrest, and we have unfortunately a teenage boy who was shot, and we don't know if that was by the Secret Service or by the gunman, and the investigation will tell us that. Luckily, he's okay.
Yeah, I think he'll be all right, hopefully. What does this tell us, James, about, I mean, bearing in mind what we saw last weekend at the Hilton, D.C., at the Correspondents' Dinner, the third assassination attempt on President Trump's life. Should we be concerned, especially here living in D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly should have a plan, and, you know, fully expect to hear something like this. If you're in and around the White House, you hear gunshots, or, you know, usually, man, people say it's fireworks, and it's just not. Just condition yourself to know that's that's gunfire, and I better take cover or get to help somehow quickly, and just don't be surprised by it. I mean, the rapidity and how, you know, the frequency of these things is so rapid. You really need to pay attention if you're in and around, you know, the Trump White House.
The president has had 3 attempts on his life, James. What's your take in terms of the kind of language we see from politicians, from support, like Democrats, I guess I'm saying? We heard some earlier here, actually, talking about a party in the UK, somebody saying one of their policies was akin to 1930s Germany, suggesting it was a slippery slope to Nazism. For me, that kind of language is thoroughly irresponsible. What's your take here on the discourse in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, you're nailing it. I think it's 4. You know, I mean, there was a shooting at Mar-a-Lago, and the president wasn't there, but, you know, the guy showed up with a shotgun and a gas can. He got killed for it, but he certainly thought Trump was there, so I would almost count it as 4. But I think you nailed it. There's a lot of talk, but I don't see a lot of action. You know, when people are going publicly saying, you know, I can't believe they missed again, you know, that's not helpful to anybody or anyone. We need to tone it down a little bit, but, you know, we all keep saying that, but yet here we are. You know, we have another incident, and I fully expect to have another one tomorrow. Copycats are a real thing, and that's what you're seeing, and it's just a reality of violence in America. You have copycats, and you're going to see more of this.
Yeah. What a shame. Well, James, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the Late Show Live. James Hamilton, former FBI Special Agent. Matt, very quickly, 20 seconds. A guy was shot outside my apartment last night as well.
Yeah.
Is DC safe?
You know, I think it's safer than under President Trump when he moved in the National Guard. You know, once President Trump moved to the National Guard, you saw crime rates on the decline. But look, no question, I think he was spot on. If there are going to be copycats out of this, the rhetoric of Democrats on Capitol Hill and around the country doesn't help.
All right. More coming up on the Late Show Live in the next hour, including this. Don't go anywhere.
Can't let them have a nuclear weapon, or you'd have problems like nobody would believe.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bright start out there for most of us, but cloud will bubble up as the day goes on, and for all of us, certainly feeling cooler than it has done over the bank holiday weekend. So as I mentioned, plenty of brightness around first thing this morning, but showers already developing across northern and western parts of the country. And as the day goes on, the cloud will bubble up almost everywhere across the UK. Sunshine at a premium during the middle of the day, but most of us generally stay in dry, but there will still be a few showers around. And note the temperature is certainly down, still potentially reaching the high teens though across the far south of England. Into the afternoon rush hour, and actually things will begin to cheer up again across parts of Scotland. Some sunshine returning here. Still a few showers around, especially across the Northern and Western Isles. And a very similar story for Northern Ireland. Sunshine returning here, but unfortunately for the main bulk of England and Wales, we will hang on to some cloud and again some spits and spots of rain, although it may well be a fairly cheery end to the day down towards the far southwest of England. Overnight, we will see a lot of the cloud begin to clear away to the south. That will allow plenty of clear skies, especially across more northern parts of the country, and that will allow us to see a fairly widespread frost to develop in the countryside, so gardeners and growers beware of that. Further south, temperatures probably hanging on into mid-single figures in the countryside. So we start Wednesday off on a fairly bright note across the east. Further west we will see some showers, but as the day goes on we will start to pick up some cloud across many eastern areas, maybe some spits and spots of rain too. So come the afternoon, best of the sunshine more towards the western half of the country, although some rain returning up across the very far northwest of Scotland. Temperatures on Wednesday down on Tuesday, potentially only up to the mid-teens across the very far south of England.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead. Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change, from the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Does Chopper need a coffee?
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Standoff in the Straits. President Trump says US forces have shot down another 7 Iranian fast boats as tension in the Middle East significantly escalates.
Let them have a nuclear weapon, or you'd have problems like nobody would believe.
cost of close relations. Britain will now have to hand over a yearly fee as part of the PM's reset with the European Union, but you won't believe how much it costs.
It's in our national interest to be closer to Europe.
Elsewhere, ICE clash. Anti-immigration enforcement protesters storm a hospital following the detention of an undocumented migrant, with clashes breaking out on the streets. Undocumented, also known as an illegal migrant, of course. Elsewhere, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio heads to the Vatican as tensions grow between President Trump and one of their closest politically aligned allies, Italy. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning. Hope you've had a great bank holiday Monday. I understand the weather was pretty nice in Blythe today. It's been nice here in DC. Joining me in the capital is Reem Ibrahim and Matt Terrell. And in London, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. And Benjamin, thank you for hanging tight. We'll catch up with you shortly. We begin this hour with a GB News alert. President Trump says Iran will be blown off the face of the earth if they target American ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It's really kicking off again in the Middle East. It follows attacks from the Islamic Republic on the UAE with a barrage of missiles and drones headed towards their country. And that's after the US launched a major operation to regain control of the strait known as Operation Freedom. Iran, meanwhile, is understood to have fired cruise missiles, rockets and deployed combat drones near the American destroyers. President Trump, meanwhile, has also taken to Truth Social, where he said, quote, Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations with respect to the ship movement. Project Freedom, including a South Korean cargo ship. Perhaps it's time for South Korea to come and join the mission. We've shot down 7 small boats, or as they like to call them, fast boats. It's all they have left. Other than the South Korean ship, there has been, at this moment, no damage going through the strait. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, will have a news conference tomorrow morning. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. My panel are here with me. Reem, I'll tell you what, I'll be completely honest, I'm getting actually quite bored of this Iran situation. I think either come to a deal, bring the Iranians to the table if you know who you're dealing with, or turn the screw, send a couple more B-2 bombers over and finish the job.
I do think there is an element of the longer this war drags on, the more long-term the damage will occur to the oil market globally. The more damage there will be to global supply. And of course, it is not the case that American consumers are entirely shielded from this. I don't know if you've seen the prices at gas stations, but they're now like $4 a gallon. Yeah, it's insane. Prices are rising. People are experiencing it. There are obviously economic consequences as a result of that. But also, crucially, the amount of American taxpayer money that's being wasted in the situation. Now, I think that the worst possible situation could be that the Iranian regime stay intact and the Trump administration just sort of withdraw, because ultimately if what we want is freedom for the Iranian people, freedom from this disgusting regime that killed 40,000 of its own people, you have to see regime change. That's the only way that we're going to get out of this, and I don't think that we're on the brink of that happening.
No, I don't think you're going to get regime change in that fashion either. No. The president, Matt, argues we have regime change. The Ayatollah is dead, all the supreme leader, his
guy's more radical.
His accomplices are dead, they're all dead, the leaders, and he says this new lot that are in, the son and his cronies, he says they're more reasonable and so on. But
is there any evidence of that? I mean, I've also heard that this guy is more radical than the other.
Well, we don't even know if he's alive. He was injured severely in an airstrike which killed his father. Matt, I have to say, I think the whole thing's a damn mess.
Well, look, I think this war is going to come to an end and come to an end soon. I think as it relates to the economy, look, the stock market's never hit higher numbers than we've seen so far, hitting record highs in the stock market. What you're seeing right now is job growth is up in the United States, strong GDP growth. The economy is very strong. This is a temporary increase in gas prices. As for the conflict, what we saw today by Iran was weakness. They sent out 6 boats, small boats, got shot down, each and every one of them, shot out of the water, each and every one of them. They used to come out with between 20 and 40 boats together. They shoot off 4 missiles to the UAE. 3 are shot down, 1 lands into
so why don't they finish the job then? Why all this
Well, I think what President Trump's trying to do is get to a place where you can get to negotiation and do this in the most peaceful way possible. But I think that his patience is running out. But at the same time, time is on the United States' side. It's not on Iran's side. Iran's economy is being decimated right now. Their military capabilities are extraordinarily weak. And frankly, this really comes down to they need to reach a deal. They're at a very critical stage right now where they need to be exporting oil. They can't right now. They can't survive economically over the next few weeks.
Do we know that that's true? And I take your point, and I do think that the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is probably the right approach to ensure that they're economically being damaged. But do we know how much money they have, how many resources they have, how many reserves they have? Do we know that Iran is being severely economically damaged to the point that they would want to concede?
Here's, I think, the big question. Who are we dealing with over there? And do we trust them? And do we believe that they will get us to a deal? They will come to a deal that is acceptable, because the last round of deal they came back with wasn't. It basically said the United States had to go away. It basically said they're not going to give up their nuclear capabilities. It's clear what Iran needs to do. Give up their nuclear capabilities, give up enrichment, and really be in a place where they will negotiate in good faith with the United States. We'll see what happens there, but here's what I can tell you.
If they're not doing that...
If they're not doing that, then I think President Trump, as he's been briefed by the United States military, is going to keep all of his options on the table. But here's what I do think. I generally believe that this war is going to come to an end soon. And in terms of wars, we're talking about a few months here. A lot of wars last for years.
Yeah.
So I think we have to put this in the proper perspective.
But part of the problem is, when Trump and Vance went to the American public during the election, they said no more forever wars. They said we are not going to get involved in foreign conflicts. We are not going to spend taxpayer money, hard-working Americans, their taxpayer money on foreign conflicts. And they've done exactly that.
Well, I got to be honest with you, I don't even consider this a war. I think these are targeted strikes that we've seen.
Of course it's a war.
Well, no, I mean,
oh, you can't. No, that's ridiculous.
No, I mean,
it's a war.
There are no boots on the ground. We have done targeted strikes. It's not as if we put thousands and thousands of troops on the ground in Iran. And on top of that, you talk about money. Listen, out in California,
can you not call this a war?
Well, President Trump earlier at the White House said it's not a war, it's a conflict. But look, let me ask you a question.
Ridiculous.
That's fine. We heard what they said. Stephen Miller was tweeting about if you want to send your kids to war in Iran, vote for Kamala. I get that. However, Iran, according to this administration, was close to getting a nuclear weapon, enriched uranium, something, I can't remember what the figure was from Steve Witkoff. So what would you do in that situation?
Well,
Iran, bunch of Islamist despots with a bunch of
uranium. Whether or not last summer, those strikes that we saw in the summer by the Israeli government, whether or not those actually wiped out their nuclear capabilities, the American public have not been told the truth about any of this. In every single other war, whether you agree with what happened in 2003 in Iraq or not, every single other war the American government have gotten involved with, they have gone to Congress, they have made the case to the American public and convinced them and taken the Americans with them. That's not happened here. The American public have been left in the dark. What are these goals? What are the aims? What is the actual
We know what the goals and aims
purpose, do we?
We know that they've been very consistent. There were 6 aims and objectives. 1, making sure they don't get a nuclear weapon. 2, defunding and disabling their proxies. 3, what was the third one?
Look, giving up enrichment. But the bottom line here is President Trump has been talking about this for years. And you as presidents, U.S. presidents have been talking about this for years. He's the only U.S. president who's taken any action on this. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. And I think the United States citizens are willing to have a few higher gas prices right now for the sake of giving up a nuclear weapon that Iran, ensuring that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. This is about national security for the United States and the world.
The main objectives were nukes, proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and also making sure they have no missile capabilities, destroying all their intercontinental ballistic missile sites and so on. They were the 3 main objectives.
The trouble is,
that's always been consistent.
There are lots and lots of governments across the world that I do not like. I do not think that the Saudi government treat their people very well. I think the Chinese government, Russia, all of these countries, look at Sudan, all of these countries have behaved abysmally and treated their people unfairly, and perhaps are also a risk to the United States. The United States government will not go in and bomb all of those countries.
Are they close to getting nuclear weapons?
We have no idea. I mean, Russia already have them. We have no idea what the
just because the Ruskies have got one, I don't think you should give one to the Islamist despots. Look what they're funding in the UK. The bloke accused of stabbing people in the street in Golders Green that was apparently a subsidiary of the IRGC. You want those kind of people to have a nuclear weapon?
Of course not. But the question is, where does this end? Where do we then say the American government should not then intervene? Because I think lots of American taxpayers who are seeing their money money be squandered in the Middle East on a war that they were told, if they voted for Trump, would not happen.
OK, but my point is they wouldn't be around to worry about their taxpayer money being squandered if Iran sends a nuclear missile over to them. They'll be dead.
Where is the evidence that Iran were ever going to?
OK, well, that's another conversation. You're saying you don't believe they're close to getting a nuke. Let's listen to what President Trump said a bit earlier today on the cost of oil. Take a look.
It's going very well. We're also pleased to be joined this afternoon by Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, who's been amazing. Where's Chris? Except everybody was wrong. They thought that energy would be at $300, right? $300 a barrel, and it's like at 100. And I think going down, and I see it going down very substantially when this is over, Chris. And I think very rapidly too, at levels that you've never seen, because there's a lot of energy out there of ships all over the world that are loaded up with it. They can't do much with it because they got kidnapped by a pretty evil place. But we're taking.
Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin Butterworth, who has been on his travels. Where have you been, Benjamin? You've been in Tehran or somewhere? I know you like going to dangerous places. What's your overall take on this Iran situation?
Well, look, I have to be honest that when this started, totally agreed with Donald Trump's action to go into Iran. You know, last year I was in Israel during the 12-day war when Israel tried to take out Iran's nuclear capabilities. And, you know, I spent 5 days in a bomb shelter and was smuggled out up through the West Bank into Jordan as the missiles were coming down. So, you know, there's no doubt about the evils of Iran. As a journalist, I've reported on how they have many, many subsidiaries in the UK and other European countries which seek to target Iranian and Jewish diaspora, including assassination attempts. So I think we've been grotesquely naive to the threat of Iran for many years. But ultimately what's happened in the last few months is that blatantly there wasn't a coherent plan for how to finish off Iran. There have been several experts, the regime I should say, there have been several experts that say that the regime will pull together if they're threatened in this way, and that's exactly what we've seen. And now we've got a situation where aviation experts are saying that Europe has 5 weeks of jet fuel available. So this is a huge disruption to our economy, and I think, you know, it's hard to come to a conclusion that this isn't humiliating for Donald Trump and the US, because Iran has got them over a barrel for the time being.
Well, he would say that they're losing $500 million a day. They've got oil with nowhere to go. They are in control, the United States, of the Strait of Hormuz. He said earlier at the White House, I was listening to him speak, he said as he always says, their navy is at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. They've got no air force. They've destroyed something like 70% of their missile capability. It doesn't look like Iran have America over a barrel to me.
Well, look, the thing is that Iran, the IRGC, is a despotic regime, and so lots of the rationale about that incredible cost to them, I don't think it hits home, because all they want to do is to keep their power over their people and their Islamism and to fight the US. And there's no getting around the fact that global oil prices are going through the roof. I think this could have a serious recession effect. We've already seen that the UK is expected to be badly, well, I mean, they're fluctuating all over the place. And when people can't even, you know, get on the planes, they can't do basic things around the world, that is going to come home to crunch. You think about Donald Trump with his midterms coming up. I know that the gentleman who worked for Marco Rubio said that Americans would be happy to have higher gas prices to take out this nuclear capability. I find that, I mean, I would agree with that argument as it happens, but I find that very hard to believe that people will tolerate this for very long. And it just looks like there is no end in sight. It just keeps going on. Donald Trump keeps claiming that they're winning, and yet we're seeing no evidence of it.
OK, interesting. Oil did peak around $126 a barrel, but I would argue it's been fairly consistent generally over the I mean, it's around about $100 a barrel. 104 futures are at the moment. So, yeah. Benjamin, thank you. Let's get the thoughts of Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief at The Foreign Desk, friend of the Late Show Live, and Reem as well. I'm going to bring you into this, Reem. Lisa, you heard what my guests here were saying, especially Reem. Just explain, please, what's your analysis of this? Is there a plan from the United States?
Yes, and I don't believe that Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth owes it to anybody on this panel to email us the details of his plan. Just because we don't seem to know what's next doesn't mean that he doesn't know what is coming next. Look, it took him 2 months to get into this war. It wasn't a Venezuela. It wasn't a slam dunk. It wasn't an overnight operation, and he knew that, and all of us who've been studying Iran for a very long time knew that as well. Why? Because for 47 years they have fortified themselves in every single way possible. They have studied every single combination. That is why we're dealing with them in Hormuz, because they're the ones who changed the theater of war to now fight us at Hormuz, or in maritime war, or in cyber war, or in narrative war, all the different ways that they have brought asymmetric warfare to the foray in dealing with them. Look, I agree with many of your panelists in talking about the crunch, in talking about what they have done to us, the oil and the gas prices, what we're feeling here in the United States. But what I don't agree with is that there is no plan, that there will be no positive outcome to all of this. None of us want war. Donald Trump is the first person who campaigned on not having wars and on ending forever wars. But if we don't want any more wars, if we don't want to have boots on the ground in the Middle East, if we don't want to be involved in the Middle East, this is the war to end all wars. If we don't want those stabbings or those random jihadi attacks in Europe or in the United States or anywhere around the world by their proxies, this is the war we have to fight. We have to cut off the biggest piggy bank of all jihadism in the world, which is Iran's regime. With that being said, it's going to take patience. This is not an easy thing. And I think all the different turns and twists in this campaign will lead up to a much weaker Islamic Republic. When we read about regime change or regime collapse or wars in history books, they're not 60 days long. If we should ever read about regime change in Iran, it's going to probably go back to 1999 when the students of the universities of Iran first came out onto the streets and told the world of their desire to have democracy and freedom, and now forward all the way to 2026 when you have different chapters and different episodes to this war to diminish the world's biggest global threat.
Yeah, I agree with you. Reem?
Well, I do think that the goal here is, you're absolutely right, the goal is in order to cut off the head that is Iran, the way in which that they have piggy-banked all of these proxies and of course caused so much damage to the world, but crucially to the Iranian people. And I think that the real question is, we're all on the same page about what the goal is and what we ought to want from the end of this war. But the question is, why hasn't the American government and why hasn't Trump gone to the American people and said, this is what we are doing? And I do disagree when you say, they don't owe the American people anything. And I think that they do. They are rooted in and paid for by American taxpayers. They did not go to Congress and have this budget approved. They did not have this same scrutiny and democratic accountability that every other war, every American president has gotten into has had. That is the way that the process works. And I think that perhaps this war would have been more popular if it had been convinced and explained to by the administration, by Trump, and perhaps also by the American government. So I think the real question is, Trump said during the election that we would not be involved in forever wars, and he did the exact opposite. He himself said that if you want to go to war, if you want to see American taxpayer money be spent abroad, go and vote for Kamala Harris. And now we have the complete opposite. Trump has done exactly what he didn't say he was going to do. There's also the other aspect of, during this war, whilst it has been occurring, so much has been said, so many contradicting statements. Trump said in the first week that the Iranians' nuclear capabilities had already been obliterated, and now he's saying it's about 15% of them still left. We have no idea what the truth is, and I think that's really where my criticism comes from.
Lisa?
Right, so here, we're conflating two things here. In the first hours of this war, Donald Trump came out and he said over a podium, he talked directly to the American people and he talked directly to the Iranian people. And the Iranian people actually appreciated that very much, that he spoke directly to them. He told them that the goals of this war, they have not changed. The goalposts remain the same. And he said to the Iranian people, we will work towards collapsing this regime. At that point, we will pass the baton on to you, and you will reclaim your country. What I'm saying is that we should not be divulging the details of the next move to our adversaries. That's why it's not being announced. It's called strategy of ambiguity. That is the way to be in order to surprise the enemy, and he's done that several times here. Now, in the end, what we all want is that the global enemy, the number one state sponsor of terrorism, should be diminished. Now, do we want them to catch them by surprise, or do we want them to diminish us? The problem that has happened all throughout this,
we're not getting
is that
that right now. Are we going to see genuine regime change?
Got to move on.
Last point that I want to make is this. People look at this war through the lens of, do I like Donald Trump or do I not like Donald Trump? Nobody is united over the fact that this is the global enemy that we are all fighting.
Well, even Congress, the Democrats in Congress voted repeatedly not to declare Iran a terrorist state. So what does that tell you? They can't even face the truth, the reality that Iran is a global exporter of terrorism. They're a bunch of cowards, the Democrats in Congress down the road here. Bunch of cowards. That's how I'll describe them. Lisa, thanks very much. Appreciate it as always. Lisa Daftari, Editor-in-Chief at the Foreign Desk. Let's speak to Tafiq Rahim, geopolitical strategist. Tafiq, what is the strategy for the United States here? Can you enlighten us?
Well, that's what everybody would like to know. I mean, I think a lot of your panelists talked about a lot of different things. But at the beginning of the conflict, Trump said that it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, and we are 2 months in. War is hard. It's not easy to win, and I don't think all the tactics should be revealed. But very clearly, the strategy did not go according to plan. The challenge for America is this is not about being pro-Trump or anti-Trump. It's not about being left or right. You're the global power. Once you start a conflict, you have to come out ahead. And so people talking about just withdraw, go back, you can't do that while going to China in 10 days. That's not an acceptable reality. But as of right now, even today, when Iran set 4 missiles and hit Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates, there really wasn't a response. And so we're in a place where the U.S. is in a very, very difficult position and probably needs to restart the war because it can't achieve at the negotiating table what it failed to achieve on the battlefield.
Okay, how long can America hang tough? Iran apparently losing $500 million a day. I would argue, I've been making the case that it's the midterms in November, and if indeed the Democrats win, they'll win the House and the Senate and probably try and impeach Trump. I know Hakeem Jeffries today said they won't do that, but I think the president is in a race against time ahead of the midterms.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Democrats don't care whether there's a war or not war. They just care whether to oppose Trump or not. And so I think taking their views seriously on the war, I don't even think they're part of the debate. Before President Trump and the GOP, and particularly those in the White House, Chief of Staff Marco Rubio, they got until about 2 months before the midterms, because that's when a lot of the voting starts, the mail-in balloting starts. So you're really talking about a window towards the end of August to achieve your objectives. And I think if there isn't a resolution kind of immediately, I don't see why there should be a resolution before that point in time if the U.S. has not achieved its aims. I just don't think they know how to get there. There's no much, you talked about, there's not much to hit. You talked about losing money. The Iranians have been under sanctions for those 47 years. They have a very autarkic kind of industry. Their military is based on local capabilities. That love asymmetric warfare, and they actually appreciate the narrative battle going on right now. So even the way the war is being fought, they don't need that many resources to wage what they're doing, and they've been replenishing their drones all the while during the ceasefire. So they're in an unfortunately strong position right now.
Okay, interesting. Tafiq, thank you so much. Great speaking to you. Come back on the show when you can, please, my friend. And yeah, have a good rest of your week. Finally, let's get the thoughts of Omid Memarian, senior Iran analyst at Dawn. Omid, language from President Trump today saying Iran will be blown off the face of the earth. I support the president in this war. I wish, actually, call me a war hawk, I don't care. I wish he'd just turn the screw and finish the job and be done with the Islamist despots. However, I am slightly bored of him saying, oh, they're going to be blown off the face of the earth. Oh, I'm going to wipe out the civilization. Oh, I'm going to destroy their power plants and bridges. Just do it then. Just finish it off. Finish the job.
Ben, thank you so much for having me. What you're saying is actually the reality on the ground. The main reason is that if you are in a strong position, this is not the language you use. Yes, the U.S. has let several ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. But before the war, every day, more than 100 ships have gone through the strait. That means Iran still has control over the Strait of Hormuz, and many ships, many companies are afraid of going through the strait. So for Iran, it's an advantage, even though the U.S. is going through this whole operation, freedom operation, and spending a lot of resources on this. But it's still, the situation is not normal. Iran has control over the strait, and this is what exactly the Revolutionary Guards has designed from the beginning. Their aim was from the beginning to take the U.S., to bring the U.S. to a prolonged war. And the U.S. knew from the beginning that this should be a very quick war. 4 to 6 weeks, President Trump said, go in, finish the job, and get out. But now what we're seeing is that the war is being prolonged. We are in the third. It started like February 28th. We are now at March 4th, and things are not going the way President envisioned, I would say.
OK, Ahmed, I'm going to play this clip for you. It's President Trump on the popularity of the war with Americans. I'll get your reaction off the bat.
It's interesting. I did a poll on the war with Iran, and they said only 32% of the people like it. Well, I don't like it, and I don't like war at all, but we're equipped better than it. We have the greatest military in the world. You saw what happened with Venezuela. You see what happens with everything. But they said 32% of the people are against President Trump. Well, when you explain it, like, is it okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon? It wouldn't be 32%. But even if you said that, there'd be a 32% because the polls.
Just your reaction to that, Ahmed, briefly, if you don't mind.
That's what I see on a daily basis. That people are feeling the impact of war on a daily basis when you fill your tank at a gas station every day. In general, I have to say there is no. Everybody agrees that they should deal with the Iranian regime, the Iranian government. But the question is how. The president has not shown any clear plan to deal with the Iranian government, and the prolonging the war is going to cost Americans more, it's going to cost Iranians more, and what the president has done with the war is to bring the most hardline elements of the Iranian regime to power, which is like a bad news.
All right, Ahmed, thank you very much. Ahmed Mamarian, senior Iran analyst at Dawn. Gas prices, $4.40 in the US, which again, I know it's no comparison really, but in the UK, it's the equivalent to 70 pence a litre. So I do say, tongue-in-cheek, what the hell are you Americans complaining about? But I understand it's higher than before the war. 70 pence a litre, could you imagine? Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live this evening. They're back again. How I long to be amongst these kind of protests. Further anti-ICE protests have erupted in New York City after an undocumented, aka illegal migrant, was arrested. But first tonight,
it's in our national interest to be closer to Europe.
The true cost of Sir Keir Starmer's reset with the European Union has been revealed as he ditches America and cozies up to the gravy train bloc that wants billions from Britain. Any idea how much they're trying to fleece us for? This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's in our national interest to be closer to Europe, and whether that's the EU loan scheme, which we are discussing with them, that's of great benefit to Ukraine, but it's also a great benefit to the United Kingdom as well in terms of the jobs that it will create in the United Kingdom. So the benefit there outweighs the cost, but more generally it is important that we see our future as a closer relationship with the EU. That's in our national interest.
That was our dear leader, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, speaking a little earlier to our political correspondent, chief political correspondent, I think, Catherine Forster, during her trip to Armenia. Now it's been revealed that Brussels is demanding Britain pays up to £1 billion a year for closer EU access. Get stuffed. But despite the hefty price, it would appear the PM is insistent on turning into Europe instead of fixing the so-called special relationship with Washington. Of course, the King was sent to mop up his big old mess this week. Last week. My panel are here, Reem Ibrahim, Matt Terrell. Reem, so I'll start with you as the Brit here. Keir Starmer, you were just saying, well, don't repeat what you just said about the EU in the break, because we'd all get sacked. However,
I hate the EU. Can they not just leave us alone? We left the European Union. They will not get a single penny of British taxpayer money. This is a problem, Ben. The EU are made up of people who are unelected, unaccountable to the British people. We have no idea who they are. They are a bunch of bureaucrats that vote for laws and legislation that make the EU poorer. Now, when you look at economic growth, when you look at the economy, and you compare the EU to America, I know where I want to be, right here in America, because America actually has a growing economy where the size of the state is smaller, where taxes are lower, and where regulations are less stringent. Ooh. The EU want to do even more of that. And I think that if the UK want to align themselves with the EU, they will end up being far poorer than they already are.
Amen, sister. Preach. Why can't we, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, just cozy up to the Americans here, to people like Matt Terrell?
We love you, America.
We don't care about the EU. We want to cozy up to the Americans.
We'll take the compliments. First of all, we love GB News. We love the people of the UK, and we're not demanding a fee, right? So what we do want, though, is obviously a partnership with the UK. And I think the King's visit here to the United States with President Trump and other key leaders was spot on. on. I think it helped strengthen that special relationship that we have with the UK. But obviously, the US is all about economic partnership. We're not about fees, economic partnership. We want the UK and many other countries. That's why I think countries like Iran and others would be wise to stop doing conflict with the United States and do economic partnership with the United States.
But this is the point. Businesses trade with one another. Governments do not trade with one another. It is businesses that do. So if British businesses want to trade with European businesses, they are more than welcome to. They are free to. We do not need to give £1 billion. I mean, I just think it's the cheek of it. It's outrageous. We do not need to give £1 billion to the EU to trade with them. If British businesses want to trade with any customers they want across the entire world, they can. Okay. But the EU is a protectionist bloc that only serves to make its countries poorer.
And Benjamin Butterworth, I would argue the EU absolutely hate us. They will never forgive us nor understand why our great nation voted for Brexit. They want to punish us. They despise us. They're jealous of our independent thought. They can't understand why we don't want to be part of their silly little gravy train club. And now, though, Keir Starmer seems to want to pick them as opposed to the US, who I would argue are our closest allies culturally, socially, politically.
Well, I wouldn't argue that. Look, I think many European leaders, when the UK voted for Brexit, and many Europeans for that matter, were incredibly sad. They felt a great long-term affection for Britain and its role in shaping the European Union. Now, it should be no surprise that having volunteered to leave that they don't always give us the best deal, because that's a decision that we democratically made. Now, this idea of paying a reported £1 billion a year to access better the EU market, well, that's based on an agreement that Switzerland has. Switzerland is, it's hardly the Soviet Union. They pay in about £400 million a year to have access for their economy to the EU market, and Switzerland does fantastically out of that. Now, the truth is that when Reem talks about businesses trading with one another, we know that having left the EU, there have been far more red tape, far more barriers to British businesses exporting to that market. And so if this is a way to bring down those barriers, to make it easier for businesses to grow, for more jobs to be in Britain, then that makes total sense. It is an investment.
So part of the problem fundamentally is this idea that businesses are not able to trade with one another unless the government tells them that they can. Now, we have to have a conversation about why it is so much more difficult for British businesses at the moment. It has nothing to do with the fact that we left the EU. In fact, when you're looking at trade, looking at how much we are trading with the EU, we are trading more than we were before. And we looked at the way in which the pandemic has affected everything that the economy is currently enduring. The reason why the British economy is suffering is because we have the highest tax burden in British history. We are currently copying the EU with their legislation. So as they enact loads of different regulations, especially on the tech sector, for example, the UK copies. We are not poor because we are not part of the EU. We are poor because we left the EU and continue to copy them.
Okay, last word, Benjamin.
Well, look, I mean, that's a slightly distracted argument, because the question isn't about the fundamentals of the British economy. The question is a straightforward, practical one. That can we take down red tape, take down barriers, so that businesses here can do more business with the EU? That's what having access to their market would mean, and that's why it's sensible. I suspect people that make cheese in Cheshire that can no longer export it would rather do this than have, highfalutin ideas of libertarianism, as Reem argues.
I think we should boycott the French, by the way. Stop buying their cheese. Stop buying. I'm not even joking. You think I'm being juvenile? Stop buying their cheese. Stop buying their wine. Sparkling wine in the UK is much better. Don't need champagne. The wine industry in the south of England is roaring. Stop buying their trash until they stop sending small boats of third worlders over to the UK. I'm not even joking. President Trump would do it.
English sparkling wine is great.
Yeah, Trump would do it. He'd say, stop sending... If this was Honduras or Mexico sending, as we saw over the years, sending migrants, tens of thousands, he'd say, right, you're getting a tariff of 500%. We're not buying your beans. We're not buying your soy. Stick it. And what would happen? They'd stop sending those migrants straight away. I don't know why we don't have the balls to do the same with the French.
Well, the point is the British can choose what they buy. If you as a Brit want to only ever buy English sparkling wine and never buy the champagne that you get in France, you can. And that's the beauty of capitalism.
Yeah, we should. I urge all viewers and listeners now, do not buy any French food. Do not go there on holiday. I'm not even joking. Do not go to Centre Parks in France. Do not buy their wine or their cheese or their chocolate. Do not go to Calais for a booze run. Do not get the ferry there. Stay away from France. Hit them where it hurts. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. The US Supreme Court has temporarily reinstated nationwide access to an abortion pill, mifepristone, blocking a ruling that threatened to upend accessibility of the pill involved in nearly 2/3 of pregnancy terminations across the country. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is recovering from pneumonia, his spokesperson has said. His condition is understood to be critical but stable in Palm Beach, Florida. Elsewhere, Britney Spears has pleaded guilty to reckless driving involving alcohol and drugs. The 44-year-old pop star had been charged with a single misdemeanor count of driving under the combined influence of alcohol and at least one drug. A representative for the singer said she'd voluntarily checked into rehab after arrest. Back in Britain, Buckingham Palace has announced Princess Eugenie is expecting her third child with her husband, Jack Brooksbank. The couple will welcome their new addition this summer, and they are already parents to 2 boys. The King is said to be delighted. Still ahead on the show, there's a major red carpet rebellion as celebrities boycott America's Met Gala. I'll reveal why just shortly. To be honest, I'm boycotting celebrities. I don't care about any of them. Absolute non-entities who know nothing about the real world. It might just expose, though, this boycotting of the Met Gala, just how pathetic some of these stars really are. Do not go anywhere. Back in a sec. But first tonight's a GB News alert. A federal judge in Washington has apologised to the suspects accused of trying to assassinate President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last weekend. After his April arrest, Cole Thomas Allen was temporarily put on suicide watch in highly restrictive conditions, where he was reportedly confined in a padded room in a straitjacket, such as restraints, while being subject to visitation limits, around-the-clock lighting and repeated strip searches. During his appearance in court today, Magistrate Judge Zia Faruqi said, "At a minimum, I should be apologising to him. We're obligated to make sure he's taken care of. Mr. Allen, I'm sorry that things have not been the way they are supposed to. To me, it's extremely disturbing that he was put in 5-point restraints, a person with no criminal history." Sorry, am I losing my mind, Matt? This is the guy accused. Let's remind our viewers. This is the guy accused of travelling across the United States from California, armed with a shotgun, handgun, knives, trying to storm the ballroom where Trump and his cabinet were, and writing allegedly a manifesto saying he wanted to take out Trump and the entire cabinet.
It's a nut job.
And this judge today has apologised.
Yeah.
Said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Allen. I'm sorry things haven't been the way they're supposed to be. It's extremely disturbing that you were put in restraints."
He was a nut job, and if you attempt to kill another person, you lose your rights.
Allegedly.
You do not get, allegedly, you do not get the right to say, "I want to have this particular segment, I want to be visited, oh no, I'm so sorry." You have literally tried to kill somebody. You don't get all of these lovely, cushy rights in prison. Ridiculous.
Matt, read this comment. "I should be apologising to him. We're obligated to make sure he's taken care of. Mr. Allen, I'm sorry things haven't been the way they're supposed to be." To me, it's extremely disturbing. He was put in 5-point restraints, a person with no criminal history. Zia Faruqi, magistrate judge.
Well, what the Justice Department did here is not uncommon. When somebody does an act, a horrific act like he did, they often are put on suicide watch. And the reason why they put him on suicide watch is because he even said that he thought he was going to lose his life. There was a good chance, essentially said there was a good chance he's going to lose his life by conducting the horrific act that he did. There's a very good chance he could have lost his life. And frankly, I think it's horrific that this judge would apologize to this individual who tried to not only assassinate the President of the United States, but kill other people in that room. It's horrific for a judge to do this. What the Justice Department did is not uncommon. They put him on suicide watch for a reason, because he tried to commit suicide by conducting that horrific act while also trying to kill people in that room. He should be allegedly kill people in that room. He should be held accountable.
He said in the manifesto that if other people died, if these innocent journalists also were killed, so be it.
Oh, this is insane. It reminds me, look, we're not meant to really in the UK. It's sacrilege to criticise the courts or judges, but I mean, okay, I won't. Just speak. It speaks for itself. You make your own up, viewers and listeners. We should be apologising to Cole Allen. With me now is New York trial attorney James Rubinowitz. James, thanks for your company on GB News and the Late Show Live. Maybe you can explain or deliver some sanity here or reasonable explanation, because I'm stunned at reading these comments from this judge.
And I understand why. And the first thing I will say is it is absolutely appalling that a federal judge would apologize to a criminal defendant because he should not be taking sides at all. And I don't think that he is taking sides if you look at his history with the court and look at his history with U.S. Attorney Pirro. But what I do want to focus on is the judge made a real mistake in apologizing to this defendant, but he did not make a real mistake on the constitutional law. Because in 1979, the U.S. Supreme Court, SCOTUS, already made this decision that you cannot be punitive before somebody has been convicted, because here in the United States, of course, we have the U.S. Constitution, which says you are innocent until proven guilty. And if the U.S. justice system is going to put somebody in solitary confinement because they're saying or alleging that he was, in fact, suicidal, they really do need to have medical backing for that. No medical doctors said that he was in any way suicidal. In fact, they made a determination otherwise. So the judge today certainly put his foot in his mouth by saying things he should not have, but he was doing it to hold the U.S. Constitution in place.
James, I would say, as a Brit, you know, I'm sure you know much more about the Constitution than me. However, the Cole Allen, in his manifesto, pretty much said this is a suicide mission. He was preparing to die. He wrote that himself. So, I mean, what does that speak for? Does that count for nothing?
So the FBI did not hold him in suicide watch because he said anything in his manifesto. What they said was they put him on suicide watch because of what he said immediately afterwards, which was that he did not expect to live after going in to the United States White House Correspondents' Dinner with a shotgun. And I think that is a completely reasonable sentence, not from a reasonable man. And I have no sympathy for this person at all. You do not deserve to have any type of preferential treatment if you go into any type of building in the United States with a gun and open fire. It is absolutely horrible. But what I am saying is your U.S. constitutional rights should not be suspended at any point. And if you suspend it in this one instance, it all of a sudden becomes a very slippery slope.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah, makes sense. If you're gonna bend the rules because something looks apparent, or this guy's accused of doing this or that, and whatever your thoughts on it, I get it. You have to stick by the Constitution, otherwise it's a slippery slope. James, thank you so much. By the way, what is Cole Allen? What sort of sentence is he facing?
He serves, or he potentially can be thrown in for life in prison. And, you know, if you go in with a manifesto and a gun into a room with the United States president, you certainly should be thrown away for jail for life. And there should not be any exceptions there. And again, I just want to mention the judge today, he did apologize, and it was not a good look on his part at all. But we need to also look at it through the lens of the history of this specific jail that Mr. Allen is now being held in 2021, which was not during Trump's presidency, it was during Biden's presidency. So it's not a Biden or Trump issue. More than 400 inmates were let out of this prison and moved to other prisons simply because it was just horrific circumstances. This jail is known for penalizing their inmates by turning off their water supply, leaving food out, having standing feces in jail cells. So it's the type of place that the judge clearly is trying to make a stand and say something else.
Got it. All right. And you said the judge apologized, did you, for his comments?
Oh, I'm not sure he apologized for his comments today, although, again, I don't think any judge should be taking sides in any way.
Oh, he apologized to Cole Allen. Got it. Okay. James, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great having you on. Please come back very soon. New York trial attorney James Rubinowitz. James, thank you. Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin Butterworth. Benjamin, where have you been, by the way? Just very quickly. And then did you miss this incident in D.C. last weekend?
No, I didn't miss it. I was following it with friends in the room through their social media, and it sounded quite terrifying. And yet another example. I was actually in, sorry to offend the Americans, I was in Cuba for the last week. So it was very interesting to see what the US is doing to that country.
Commie's going to commie, eh, Ben?
I'm definitely not a communist, but it was fascinating to be there. And in fact, actually, Cuba has removed any reference to communism from its constitution. So even Cuba isn't communist anymore.
What did you make of the comments from this judge today? James, who we just had on, said, look, it's part of the Constitution. You have to be kept in a fit and proper way, and that's why he apologised. But, I mean, goodness me.
Yeah, I think the reality is, first of all, I find it very strange as a Brit, because to talk about the idea that he definitely did this rather than alleged is odd, because, of course, he wouldn't be allowed to do that on a UK case that hadn't yet been gone to its fruition. And I think that, you know, it's a very bad look for a judge, for someone in justice, to talk about the sympathy of somebody accused of something so severe and heinous. However, isn't it the thing that separates us as Western, democratic, developed nations is civility, is equal application of justice, is innocent until the point you're proven guilty. And this person has not yet stood trial and been convicted, and so they should be treated with a basic dignity. Indeed, they should be treated with a basic dignity even if they are convicted. I think that is what separates us. And punitive punishment, or a worse punishment because of the nature of this attack as opposed to another attack in a different circumstance, I don't think that's justice or fairness at all, and someone has to speak up for that eventually.
Yeah, OK, well said. I don't think every prisoner in the UK, I think certain crimes you should be stripped of your dignity and respect in prison. You can probably guess which kind of crimes and murders. Child abusers, paedophiles. I have no respect or cause to treat them with dignity, but there we go. Matt, Ben, you're still there. We'll catch up with you in the next hour, Benjamin. Thank you. Matt, just finally, your thoughts on this judge and this situation. There's no death penalty, of course, in DC, so if he is found guilty, the maximum sentence would be a life sentence.
Yeah, if he's found guilty, then obviously I think that's a sentence he should be served with. Look, it's not that people here are arguing that he shouldn't have his right in his day in court. He deserves that, like any American. But I think part of what we're seeing here, and I'm not a legal expert, and I'm not obviously part of his defense team. I suspect part of this is his defense team recognizing he's clearly going to lose this case. They're throwing out whatever they can to kind of trip up the prosecution here, to trip this up a bit. I suspect that's part of it. Obviously, we want to ensure that everyone is treated fairly under the law. Everyone has their right and day in court. But what we're talking about here, going back to it, is that he did make it clear that he thought he was going to lose potentially his life during this conflict. I would argue that that is suicide. And it's not uncommon for the Justice Department, especially 48 hours or so, or maybe a little bit longer after an incident like this occurring, and someone has that kind of direction, if you will, in the incident, putting them on suicide watch. This is not uncommon what we're seeing here.
OK, hopefully I'm heading to death row soon to speak to, well, we'll do a documentary on the death penalty, because there are big calls, Reem, in the UK.
What's your views on the death penalty?
Well, I'm not conflicted. I think paedophiles and child killers should definitely face the death penalty. I don't care how it's done either. I think maybe in most occasions it should be in the worst way possible. But there are growing calls in the UK, especially after Southport, from the likes of Rupert Lowe at Restore. Indeed, he stood up in Parliament and talked about the death penalty for capital punishment to be brought back in the UK. So I want to explore here in the US, does it work? Do victims and the families feel like they get justice? Is it less expensive? Because one guy being executed in Alabama next week, he's been on death row since 1970.
Yeah.
So all the lawyers' fees, the court cases, so I want to explore that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I did hear that if you are on death row for a long time, you obviously also get unlimited appeals, because, you know, if the end is the end of your life, you have to be able to appeal that. And so it ends up costing an enormous amount of taxpayer money.
Are you pro or against?
I'm conflicted, Ben, I must say. I mean, I don't like the idea of the state having the power to end somebody's life. I also don't like the idea of child rapists being able to remain alive in prison. And so I do think that there is an aspect of this to be explored. I'm looking forward to the documentary.
Yeah, also the religious aspects. Why in so many red states, God-fearing red states, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, all pro-death penalty, how does that square with the Bible? I know the answer now because I've researched it, but my question was, you know, Jesus said, "Thou shalt not kill," or the Ten Commandments, rather. And how do you square that if you take a life of somebody else?
Is it an eye for an eye? Like, you know.
Well, part of this is just deterrence, right? I mean, look, what we're seeing here is that, unfortunately, many people in this country are getting away with crimes because under Democrats, in my view, they have weakened our ability for law enforcement and for the judicial system to hold people accountable. And for the most heinous acts, I do think the death penalty should be on the table. Now, it's got to be executed appropriately. There have been people who've been in death penalty who end up getting off death row, if you will, because they end up not committing the crime. So I think you have to be very methodical about these things, but it comes down to deterrence. And I think right now it's deterring people from doing the most heinous of acts. And if you're a loved one who's been, has a son or daughter, husband or wife, brother or sister who's been murdered, I think you look at this very differently.
It's interesting. Do you think it's the easier way out? If you've done a horrible thing, being able to just say, yeah, I'm going to end my life now. Is it the easy way out?
Maybe it's probably worse just sitting in a cell for 22 hours a day for 40 years. However, I would just take great joy in seeing a child killer or a pedo suffer, not even just killed, maybe call me a sadist, suffer the worst death possible. Ian Huntley, Roy Whiting, you go on and on.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice conversation.
I think lots of people would agree with you, Ben.
Nice conversation for 2 in the morning, sorry about that. More coming up in the next hour. And what is going on here? Take a look.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bright start out there for most of us, but cloud will bubble up as the day goes on, and for all of us, certainly feeling cooler than it has done over the bank holiday weekend. So as I mentioned, plenty of brightness around first thing this morning, but showers already developing across northern and western parts of the country. And as the day goes on, the cloud will bubble up almost everywhere across the UK. Sunshine at a premium during the middle of the day, but most of us generally stay in dry, but there will still be a few showers around. And note the temperature is certainly down, still potentially reaching the high teens though across the far south of England. Into the afternoon rush hour, and actually things will begin to cheer up again across parts of Scotland. Some sunshine returning here. Still a few showers around, especially across the northern and western Isles. And a very similar story for Northern Ireland. Sunshine returning here, but unfortunately for the main bulk of England and Wales, we will hang on to some cloud and again some spits and spots of rain, although it may well be a fairly cheery end to the day down towards the far southwest of England. Overnight, we will see a lot of the cloud begin to clear away to the south. That will allow plenty of clear skies, especially across more northern parts of the country, and that will allow us to see a fairly widespread frost to develop in the countryside, so gardeners and growers beware of that. Further south, temperatures probably hanging on into mid-single figures in the countryside. So we start Wednesday off on a fairly bright note across the east. Further west we will see some showers, but as the day goes on we will start to pick up some cloud across many eastern areas, maybe some spits and spots of rain too. So come the afternoon, best of the sunshine more towards the western half of the country, although some rain returning up across the very far northwest of Scotland. Temperatures on Wednesday down on Tuesday, potentially only up to the mid-teens across the very far south of England.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change.
From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Straight standoff. President Trump says US forces have shot down another 7 Iranian fast boats. That's as tensions in the Middle East significantly escalate.
Let them have a nuclear weapon where you'd have problems like nobody would believe.
Elsewhere, anti-immigration enforcement protesters storm a hospital following the detention of an illegal migrant, with clashes breaking out on the streets of New York. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio heads to the Vatican as tensions grow between President Trump and one of their closest politically aligned allies, Italy. Giorgia Meloni today also throwing a spanner in that works. Elsewhere, red carpet rebellion. Celebrities are boycotting one of America's biggest nights of fashion. And once again, politics is playing a role. I'll tell you why very shortly. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning to you. Hope you're well. Happy Tuesday. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel, former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and the reporter for Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim. And in London, journalist and broadcaster, Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, Benjamin. Thank you for your company thus far. We'll catch up with you shortly. Right, moving on to our main news this evening. Several people are in custody after clashes on the streets of Brooklyn, New York City, following an arrest by ICE agents. The New York Police Department responded to reports of about 200 disorderly protesters outside the Wyckoff Heights Medical Center. Police say officers arrived to find numerous people obstructing vehicle traffic and blocking emergency entrances and indeed exits to the hospital. 9 people were taken into custody after repeated verbal warnings to disperse were made by police, and 8 of those people were arrested and charged with resisting arrest, obstructing government administration, reckless endangerment and criminal mischief. One person was released on criminal court summons. The protests are believed to have broken out following the arrest of somebody called Chidozie Wilson Okeke, a criminal undocumented immigrant from Nigeria, aka an illegal migrant who shouldn't be here, with previous arrests for assault and criminal drug possession. So these are the types of people, these protesters, these lunatic left protesters, are protesting and protecting. They're going to bat for them in the streets. They're squaring off against armed law enforcement to protect criminal drug possessors, dealers, assaulters, great people. During the arrest of that guy, Okeke from Nigeria, the Department of Homeland Security says he attempted to hit ICE agents with his vehicle. You see what I mean? Great guy. Then tried to punch and elbow the officers. I don't know. I lose my mind at this, Matt Terrell. These are the kinds of people protesters are. They're spending. So it's Monday. Think of it, it's a great sunny day here on the east coast of America. It's Monday. You can do anything you want. You can go and check out great national parks, you can maybe go to work, you can spend time with your kids, and yet these losers go to New York and go to bat for a criminal degenerate from Nigeria. What's wrong with people?
The key thing you said there, go to New York. They're not from New York, many of these protesters, and that's the biggest thing. This appears to be organized in my view, but put that aside. These protesters did a very dangerous act there. Not only were they interfering with law enforcement, which is dangerous in itself, they were blocking the entrance to a hospital. So anybody who had a potential emergency at that time could have had a situation there where they had limited access to that hospital. Beyond that, though, the bigger concern I have is that the Democrat Party is doubling down on supporting these protesters. You have the New York mayor, Mayor Mamdani, supporting these protesters, calling out ICE. You've had Democrats compare ICE to Nazis and fascists. Democrat leaders making those statements. That's the kind of rhetoric that leads to a record of consistent protests like this. It's not helpful. I think this is one of those 80-20 issues. It's why I believe Republicans will outperform in the upcoming midterm elections, because people don't want to see that kind of activity in their streets.
Mamdani, the commie Muslim mayor of New York, said today, well, he slammed ICE for the protests. He said, when it comes to our police force, I've been very clear about the fact there cannot be any work in coordination with ICE and planning with ICE. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got the mayor of New York City saying our coppers, directing his coppers not to work with ICE.
Right.
To protect, can I just remind everybody here, and viewers and listeners, to protect a misfit, degenerate criminal from Nigeria who is here illegally. This is what's going on here. Just to remind everybody of how insane it is.
I don't disagree with anything that was just said, but I do think that A, those people have the right to protest, and America is a free country where we have the First Amendment.
They do, but aren't they a bunch of losers? Let's just be honest.
Yes, but the question is whether or not they have broken the law, and no, they have not. They are absolutely right to exercise their free speech. There's also the other aspect of, I do believe that that if the law should be upheld, and if you've entered the country illegally, then that is not okay, and you've broken the law. That being said, ICE have treated people abysmally. There are people that have died in ICE custody. There are people that have been treated abysmally. American citizens have been mistakenly arrested, detained for days.
That happened under Obama as well. People died under Obama's ICE.
Fine,
people were deported
two wrongs don't make
under.
a right. I'm not an Obama supporter. Two wrongs don't make a right. I think it's all abysmal, and there has to be a question of whether or not ICE as an organisation are actually being scrutinised in the same way that other organisations are.
Are you joking? Is ICE being scrutinised?
Well, by the administration. Are they being upheld? Are those officers that killed Alex Pretty, that killed Renee Good, are those people actually being prosecuted in the same way?
Pretty was armed with. Pretty was the guy, right?
Yes.
He was armed with a gun.
So we believe with the Second Amendment, Americans have the right to bear arms.
I'm just saying, he was armed with a gun. He put himself in a hostile environment with armed law enforcement, spitting at their cars, kicking their cars. I mean, I don't know whether what happened to him was justified or not, but I'm saying if you made better decisions, you wouldn't find yourself in that situation.
What happened to Alex Pretty was not right. He was killed on the floor. He literally was already on the floor and they shot him.
Do you know what, Reem?
So immoral.
Do you know what, Reem? If the police and the governor in Minnesota had done what Mamdani is also refusing to do, and that's allow their police force to arrest people like Pretty, i.e. the day before when he was
arrested
for spitting on cars, for kicking cars belonging to ICE, he would have been arrested under any normal circumstances, and he wouldn't have been there the next day to get shot by ICE agents.
I believe that the First Amendment allows you to have freedom of expression, and the Second Amendment allows you to have the right to bear arms, and those are fundamental rights. The fact that Pretty had a gun on him has nothing to do with the fact that he was put on the floor. He was no threat to anybody, and the ICE agents took out a gun and shot him. They shot a man on the floor.
Listen, you also have a situation where someone took a vehicle and hit an ICE agent. Let's put those aside. It's not just that these governors aren't working, with ICE. They're not allowing the police force, the police departments, to detain these individuals who are here in the country illegally, and in many cases have committed heinous crimes. You're talking about an individual here in New York who had illegal drug possession, assault. You have people in this country who've been here illegally, who have killed people, murdered people. President Trump campaigned on doing exactly what he's doing right now. It's not as if he hid this from the American people. He said he's going to tighten our border, secure our border. And by the way, back to Ben's point, you may not be a President Obama supporter, nor am I, but he did use ICE to deport people from this country. President Trump is not the first president to do it. He has an obligation as the President of the United States. His #1 priority is to keep the American people safe.
But don't Americans have the right to protest if they disagree with the policy?
They have the right to protest, but do they have the right to assault ICE agents? You see, we've seen assaults on ICE agents. I've seen some statistics showing up 1,000%. It is extraordinarily dangerous right now to be an ICE agent. And you have politicians in Washington, Democrats, calling these ICE agents fascists and Nazi. This is law enforcement.
Look, I obviously don't agree with that, and I obviously do not agree with assaulting law enforcement. Obviously, do not do that. It's illegal and awful. But the question is, these people are disagreeing with the government's policy on immigration.
They're blocking a hospital.
Do they not have the right to do so? Do they not have the right to protest?
To block a hospital.
To interfere with law enforcement, you do not have that right. If protesting is protesting, you don't have the legal authority in this country as a citizen to block a law enforcement agent from conducting an arrest. That is against the law. If you do that, you get arrested and go to jail. So protesting, I'm fine with protesting. I believe I don't agree with what they're protesting, but as an American citizen, I can agree with you more. The right to freedom of speech, the right to protest, not the right to interfere with law enforcement. And by the way, ICE is law enforcement, unlike what those Democrats in Capitol Hill are saying.
Journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, what's your take on what we saw in New York today? Let's just focus on, let's focus on all of ICE.
Well, I mean, I have to say I really agree with the way Reem has put it. She's put it excellently, which is that, you know, these people have shot 2 people that died. You've had people dying in custody, and they are going around intimidating and arresting people that in many cases are legitimate US citizens. I think that will create a culture of fear, and it is from that that you see these sorts of protests. I think on the other hand, some of these people that are going out and protesting want anything to protest about, and they are, you know, as bad as the other side. They're looking for vengeance and anger and disruption, and they're less bothered about the problem. What frustrates me is that you see people on the right try to excuse utter abuses of power by the state, which is some of what ICE has done, because they tried to say, well, we have to deal with the immigration problem. Yes, Obama did it. He deported more people than any other US president, if I'm not mistaken. Of course you should remove illegal immigrants and not let them in the country. That doesn't mean you get to go round intimidating and shooting innocent people on the streets, which we know ICE has done.
Well, Matt?
Well, look, I mean, the bottom line is, many would argue, myself included, President Obama got away with using ICE because he was a Democrat. The bottom line is President Trump, anything President Trump does, you're going to have Democrats criticize. And I cannot believe that in the United States of America right now, that it's a winning formula to go and say, you know, we're going to block law enforcement, which is what ICE is, from removing people in this country who've been here illegally. The American people voted on this. Now, they may not agree with every tactic that ICE uses. And by the way, there are things in life that can always be done better. But the truth is, at the core of it, what ICE is doing is the right thing for the United States of America. And President Trump promised to do this. And the truth of the matter is, we have a real crisis in this country, because even though President Trump has secured the border, even though President Trump is using ICE to deport people who are in this country illegally, we still have people in this country who got in under President Biden who were unvetted. You had under President Biden a wide open border, and one of the reasons why President Trump won is to secure that border. He's done.
But we're not necessarily disagreeing with you on the policy itself. I mean, that's an entirely different conversation. The question is whether or not these people are able to protest what ICE has done in terms of their really rather egregious and violent acts, and the way that they've done this. I mean, we've spoken about the Alex Pretty and Renee Good case, but also the aspects of arresting American citizens, you know, people being literally killed or dying due to neglect in ICE custody. There was a guy who was a refugee, or he claimed to be a refugee, undocumented illegal immigrant, but he was very old, he was blind and he was deaf, and he was released under ICE custody and he was later found dead. There are lots of aspects of this where we are seeing criminal negligence, and I'm not sure that we are necessarily having the conversation in this respect. It's got nothing to do with Trump, it's got nothing to do with Obama. I'm not party political at all. It's the question about whether or not this is moral and good.
This has everything to do with President Trump, because these Democrats in Washington weren't complaining about President Obama using ICE. They're complaining about President Trump using ICE. Well, I do, because when Democrats...
It's not about what the Democrats saying, it's about what ICE is doing and what's right.
When Democrats are calling them Nazis and fascists, that only makes the threat rise against ICE.
They have the right to call whoever you want a Nazi.
Listen, I don't think as a sitting politician you should call President Trump a Nazi. You shouldn't call ICE Nazis. I think part of the political violence we're seeing in this country is because you have politicians who are using rhetoric that is fueling violence in this country, and that's not helping ICE. It's not helping.
Let me tell you, I went out with ICE in Florida. I went for a ride along. We were looking for an international cocaine smuggler. On the way, they picked up 8 other illegals. They were doxxed. I was doxxed on the roadside. didn't have a balaclava on. I was just sat with the ICE agents. They were arresting some illegals. A van drove past, took pictures of us, and 10 minutes later, my picture, my cameraman's picture, all the ICE agents' pictures, all over social media saying, warning, warning. And I spoke to the guy, the head of the ICE team out that day. He said, we are looking for an international cocaine smuggler.
Yeah.
We could be looking for a paedophile, and you get these losers driving by trying to dox us. That's why they use...
Well, they're obviously unemployed.
Well, they are all unemployed. And people have died in custody under previous administrations as well.
Yes,
it's par for the course.
Two wrongs don't make a right, Ben,
but you'll never get people not dying in custody. When you are arresting hundreds of thousands of people, some people, by the law of averages, are going to die in custody. That's what happens.
But what about when it's obvious that there has been negligence, when it's obvious they've not been looked after? What about when American citizens are being detained for days without any way of proving that they are who they say they are? I don't believe that any of this is right. Yes, we can say that if you are an illegal immigrant, you ought to be deported, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at the way that ICE have behaved and say, hey, I think this is actually immoral.
Yeah, fine. There's room for improvement. I'll give you that. There's room for improvement. This is what happened, actually. Let's remind ourselves when I went out with ICE down in Florida in November. Take a look. So it's 4 in the morning here in southwest Florida. Behind me now, the guys from ICE and the local sheriff's department here in Hendry County are getting ready for this raid.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going after a Guatemalan national. His name is Alicio Tutchuk. He's wanted in El Salvador for drug trafficking. The guy has been expelled twice from the United States under Title 42. Be safe out there. We already have a vehicle on site. He's going to call out the radio.
So we've just pulled over the car on the roadside. He just left his house down there, maybe a mile or two down the road. ICE agents surrounding the car with their vehicles. They're asking him to roll down the window and present his details.
Or we can get this done easy and quick. And right now you're making it complicated.
So these guys are putting their health, their safety, their lives on the line each and every day to tackle this illegal migration problem. Okay, with me now is the Director of the Border Security and Immigration Centre at the Heritage Foundation, Laura Rees. Laura, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Just in reference to what we saw in New York today, your take, please, and also the wider ICE conversation. They have definitely toned down their PR as of late. You don't see DHS posting clips on Twitter of, you know, Pokemon and so on. You know, the way they were kind of deliberately trolling the left and the Democrats. They've definitely toned it down, haven't they?
Well, they have, and thank you for having me on. Mayor Mamdani's comments that ICE is just functioning in a cruel manner is an elitist comment by an elitist who clearly sees no risk in losing a loved one to crime or worse, to just let the masses deal with such crime and other negative consequences from mass illegal immigration. It's a reckless comment. And as far as ICE's job here, I was afraid that the left was going to say, oh, well, ICE was arresting someone at a hospital, omitting everything that led up to this. He had been arrested for drug trafficking and for assault. He aimed his car at ICE agents, and when they did arrest him, he said he asked for medical treatment, so they took him to the hospital, where he fought the medical team and he fought the ICE agents all the way out the door. These people arriving are not protesters. They are illegal obstructionists. They are blocking a hospital. They were damaging ICE vehicles, and they were assaulting ICE agents. So we need to be very clear about the difference between someone standing on a sidewalk with a sign and chanting as lawful protesters versus illegal obstructionists. And we're going to see more of this summer as we head to November, midterm elections. And so while DHS Secretary Mullen says he doesn't want to be in the media every night, the left will put ICE in the media due to attacks like this, and I think this is just going to continue.
So Laura, just explain the psychology of these so-called protesters. So you've got an illegal migrant from Nigeria, shouldn't be here. He's assaulted people, he's assaulting cops, whatever else he did. You know, he's a wrong one, he's a degenerate. So what is the psychology of these people who think, okay, well, I'm going to go down to the hospital where he's being treated and spark scenes like this that we see on your screen now? What are they thinking? What's going on here?
Well, for some, they don't like the policy. They don't want to see deportable aliens deported. Many for political reasons, for political power. For others, it's just an excuse. They are perfectly willing to get into clashes with law enforcement and to sow more division in the U.S. I mean, we are living in the age of rage. We had daily protests in 2020 and riots, and we could be seeing more of that this summer leading into November. So the issue for some is never the issue. The issue is just division and discord in America to tear down our institutions, etc. And truly to bring anarchy to our communities when Americans are fed up with this. They were fed up with it in November of 24. That's why they voted the way they did. But things aren't getting better when we have, on almost a weekly basis, more Americans dying from criminal aliens who are still here, and the fraud that is being revealed almost daily.
Just finally, who, if anybody, is funding these protesters, Laura? Is it organic? Are they just very, do-gooder moral citizens who think they're doing their civic duty, or are they organised? If so, who's funding them?
It's highly organized, funded, and trained. The two common denominators are Soros organizations, but also Neville Singham, who lives in Shanghai and has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. During the Alex Preddy encounter, the text messages were hacked into, and it was revealed just how organized and trained these illegal obstructionists are.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it, and please come back on the show soon. As you said, I think this will carry on well into the summer, and I think we'll need your great analysis, Laura, as the summer goes on. Let me just read you some names, viewers and listeners, very quickly, of recent and high-profile victims of illegal migrants here in America. Laken Riley, maybe the most famous, 22-year-old nursing student from Georgia, killed while jogging. The perpetrator, her killer, Jose Ibarra, was a Venezuelan who came into the country illegally. Terrible case. Joycelyn Nongari, she was 12, from Houston, Texas, in 2024, sexually assaulted and murdered by two Venezuelan men who entered illegally. Rachel Morin, a 37-year-old mother of 5 from Maryland, in 2023, raped and murdered on a trail. Victor Martinez Hernandez was the killer, from El Salvador, an illegal migrant. Kayla Hamilton, 20, from Maryland, murdered by an illegal migrant. Kate Steenley, 32, from San Francisco, shot on the pier in California by an illegal migrant. Sarah Root, 21, killed by a drunk driver, illegal migrant. Joshua Wilkinson, Jamie Shaw Jr., Molly Tibbetts, Ivory Smith, Megan Boss, Victoria Harwell, Hallie Hagelson, 18, from Minnesota, and her boyfriend Brady, killed by a drunk Honduran illegal migrant. And it goes on and on and on. One of those cases is too much. Same as the UK. One killer, Rianne Sky White, who worked in the asylum hotel. One is enough. The poor lad, I've forgotten his name, the 19-20-year-old, killed by a Serbian double killer down on the south coast. Was it in Bournemouth? One is enough. Not a list and a litany. So that's why you have ICE, that's why you have deportations. And these losers, I'll say again, these absolute losers who go to New York and go to bat for a Nigerian illegal migrant who has been convicted of assaulting somebody, other crimes as well, who has been assaulting cops on the streets of New York. And these people are going onto the streets of the city, fighting police and getting involved in something they shouldn't be getting involved in. They are deranged. Completely deranged. gbnews.com/your say. Apparently not all illegal migrants are criminals, but you can see a pattern. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live, there's trouble in Hollywood as celebrities boycott the Met Gala. And the reason why might surprise you. I'd boycott the Met Gala as well. Back in a tick on the Late Show Live.
Buckle up, Britain. It's going to be quite a ride. Votes are being cast and counts are gearing up in elections across the country. Everything could change. From the first result to the inevitable aftermath. We'll be across it all. Vote 2026, the people decide. From 11 p.m. Thursday night, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Does Chopper need a coffee?
Does Chopper need a coffee? No, but I do. Actually, no, I don't. I won't sleep tonight if I have one. Right, let's move on. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will travel to Rome this week for talks with Pope Leo, no relation, at the Vatican. Rubio is also expected to meet senior Italian ministers. That's after the Italian PM, Giorgia Meloni, is believed to have had a significant fallout with the Trump administration over both the Iran war and the president's recent comments about the Pope himself, meaning basically America potentially has lost its closest political ally in Europe. Well, no better to speak to about this than former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell. Welcome back, Matt. Rubio has gone from a wedding DJ, Secretary of State, now to Rome to clean up some sort of broken relationship. What's going on and why is it important he's there? As if he didn't need more jobs. No, look, he's doing a great job, obviously, in all those jobs, particularly DJing, of course, as well. But look, as for this trip, obviously the Pope has made some comments about the administration, namely related to the Iran war and illegal immigration policy. Obviously, that rubbed the president the wrong way, and we'll see what happens of this trip, not only with the Pope, but obviously with the leadership in Italy as well. But look, there's a lot going on the foreign policy stage, and part of that does require to continue to have these kind of discussions and diplomacy with our allies. The Secretary always does a great job going abroad, speak with our allies, having dialogue with them. We'll see what comes of the event. Meloni, I mean, arguably Meloni has peed off President Trump because did she not say they couldn't use Italian airspace? Well, that, but you know, she's not the only country, frankly, be doing that, right? I mean, we saw what Spain did in terms of not allowing the United States to use airspace as it relates to this Iranian conflict. I think in the end, whether it's the Prime Minister of Italy or, frankly, with all due respect to the Prime Minister of the UK and other countries, the president feels burned, I think, by our allies not being there for us. So, you know, the truth is, in this conflict in Iran, this is a situation that impacts Italy, impacts the UK, Europe in general, in a very unique way. I mean, as we saw when the missiles were launched from Iran to Diego Garcia, Iran lied about how far those missiles could go. Iran lied about the capability of particularly striking Europe and having the ability to do that with missiles. That's a clear threat to Europe. And as we're seeing in the Strait, that impacts Europe, frankly, more than impacts the United States economically. So why is everyone sitting on their backsides then, Reen?
Well, because they don't want their taxpayer money to be wasted on a war that was unnecessary. I mean, it's really fascinating, isn't it, when we're looking at, I think Trump got a bit of a reality check when he went to war in Iran and he didn't have all of his allies, even people like Meloni, who he's very close to, those that are naturally more politically aligned to Trump, and they didn't go in and back for them because people like Meloni came in and said, actually, you know what, we don't want Italian taxpayer money to be spent in a war in Iran that has nothing to do with us. They stuck with those principles, and I think what's fascinating is so many European countries who Trump assumed would go and support him in this war said, no, you're on your own. You want to go to war in Iran. That's your business. That's your money. You go do that. None of our business. We are not getting involved. Well, that's why this is what makes President Trump President Trump. He doesn't think like every other politician on the planet. He doesn't follow polls. But he throws his toys out of the pram when every other country doesn't do what he wants them to do. Well, look, it's not about what they want to do. It's, I think, what they should do. And the bottom line here is the United States has spent more money than any other country on NATO defense spending. And I would argue for the security of NATO, what's taking place in Iran relates to the security of NATO and the security of the United States and, frankly, the security of the world. You're not going to convince me that Iran was not on course to have a nuclear weapon. You're not going to convince me that Iran would not obliterate the United States and obliterate Europe if they had the choice. And you're not going to convince me that the largest state sponsor of terrorism should not be under attack right now by President Trump and ensuring that this regime is obliterated. President Trump made the right choice. Other politicians may follow polls. The president's following good policy. This is good policy. It's not about polls. It's following the principles of what they promised. You know, if they promised we will not get involved in foreign conflicts, they have followed that. What Trump has done is completely U-turned on what he promised the American public at the election. He's consistently talked about, for years he's been talking about Iran. At the election, he's given them, he wasn't going to go to war in Iran.
He's given Iran so many options to work with him, so many options to come to the negotiating table, so many times.
The Iranians gave Trump a deal on Saturday.
It was a horrific deal. They say
right, but you're not saying what you're saying.
That's not a real. That's hang on. You can give someone a deal. But President Trump's not about getting a deal. He's about getting the right deal. Right. That's what this is about right now.
But the Iranians did. Let's just be clear. The Iranians did give Trump an option to end the war, and he said
which
no.
didn't include nuclear. Giving up the nuclear
discuss it in the second month. I think it was a 3-month process. First month, we'd open up the Strait of Hormuz. Second month, we would talk about nuclear disarmament and what capabilities they're allowed to have.
Okay.
Third month, talk about the strategy and sort of the stabilization of the region as a whole. That was the plan that Iran gave. Whether or not you agree with it or not, that was an option that Trump could have taken, but he didn't, because I think if it looks as though Trump has been defeated in this war, that will bode not very well. So I think he is looking at the polls.
Not bode well for what? The midterm elections? I'm going to make some breaking news here on GB News. I don't think he's worried about the midterm elections right now. I'm being honest right now. I don't think he does. Does he want to win the midterms? Of course. Do I actually think in the end this will help him win the midterms? Yes, I do. Do I think gas prices will come down at some point? Yes, I do. Why do I say that? Because we did have that moment when the strait was truly open. You saw gas prices come down. A lot of people around Washington were saying they'd be at $200 a barrel. They never reached that.
But we're seeing, like, Trump had effectively, we're talking about this issue with Italy, Trump had effectively insulted the Italian leader, and then now Marco Rubio is going to clear up that mess.
I think President Trump, I want to speak for the president, I think he would say that they insulted him in the United States by not being there at a moment when we needed them most.
Okay.
But that's my
He
thoughts.
can't bully other countries into getting involved in wars they don't want to get involved in.
Pseudomass on your side has said unnecessary war, Reem. They've been calling for the death of the West for 47 years. They killed approximately 90,000 people over the time they've been in power. They've also hung many of the homosexual people in the country and oppressed women. One of the regime was on state TV and admitting that they were developing nuclear weapons. Search Twitter. But let's leave it, yeah? Every other single president for years, including Obama, has said they won't let Iran get a nuclear bomb.
How many other countries are equally have also called for the death of America, have also called for the death of the West, have also hung and killed homosexuals? I mean, how many other... We're talking about what's happening in Sudan, where Christians are being effectively genocided.
The
Uyghur
Sudanese...
Muslims in China, you know, how the Russians have treated their people. There are so many governments across the world...
They're not Islamist despots.
But what does it matter that they're Muslim? I mean, they're all treating their people horrendously.
Islamists.
Right,
Islamists who hate the West.
Right, but there are other countries that also hate the West. We don't go in and bomb them.
There is a distinct difference between a bunch of Islamists getting a nuclear weapon and the Chinese doing what they're doing with the Uyghur Muslims in China.
Why is it different?
Because nobody's threatening to nuke the West.
The Chinese have threatened the US. They've threatened
Come on,
the West.
not on the same level as Iran.
The Russians have literally killed people on American soil. Like, I think what we don't understand
The Russians aren't Islamists.
But what we're talking about, the problem with Islamism is the idea that people want to kill Westerners. They want to hurt the Western democracy, the liberal democracy that we treasure so much. So do the Russians. So do the Chinese.
I'm sorry.
So do so many other countries, but we don't waste American taxpayer money bombing every single country.
The Russians and the Chinese don't send, well, for the most part they do on small examples, look at the Skripal poisonings, but they do not send soldiers, which is what they are, onto the streets of Britain to go and kill Jews, to try and bomb the Israeli embassy, to try and gain access to the Israeli embassy, to attack Jews in the streets. They do not do that.
But if we're talking about the threat to the West, there are so many other countries that also threat the West. And I do think that we are perhaps setting a dangerous precedent where every single time we see a government in which they are potentially prosecuted or potentially at risk to the West, and we think that might be the case. I don't believe that Iran were going to bomb the Americans. They would have been stupid to. But even if we do believe that to be the case, then the Americans have to go and bomb at least another 20 countries. Like, if we're going to follow this logic.
The Houthis were bombing the Royal Navy in the Gulf of Aden some years ago.
But how many other...
Who else does that? Is Russia bombing the Royal Navy?
They do fund proxies. We don't know exactly where they are and to what extent that they are being supported, but there are lots of other governments that also fund proxies, which, again, we're all saying is bad, right? We're not saying this is okay. The Iranian regime have behaved abysmally, but the question is, do we think that the American government and American taxpayers ought to foot the bill for every single war with every single government that potentially may threaten the Western?
Well, Republicans do back President Trump on the war. The last poll from jail partners showed just 8%. The likes of Tucker Carlson's lot, Megyn Kelly's lot don't agree, 8%. And the rest of the MAGA base do support him.
Base, not the American population. So
no, but they're not voting for Trump anyway. A bunch of lunatic left Democrats who don't want the war in Iran because they're Islamist sympathisers. They're not voting for Trump anyway, and they never will.
I think it's unfair to say that everybody that doesn't want the war in Iran are Islamist sympathisers.
Look on the streets of New York.
Look on the streets of London. I don't want the war in Iran, and I'm not an Islamist sympathiser. What I am saying is that American taxpayer money ought to be spent without it being frivolous. And when Trump has promised not to enter a war, and he then goes and enters into a war, Americans who voted for Trump were betrayed.
The Democrats in Congress won't even vote to recognise Iran as a terrorist state.
Right. I'm not defending Democrats. I'm saying that for you to say that everybody that is against the war in Iran is an Islamist sympathiser, that's ludicrous.
I'm saying there's a big proportion. Look on the streets of London. You have people holding pictures of the Ayatollah saying, RIP Ayatollah, USA hands off the Islamist regime. You've got the Democrats in Congress not refusing to recognise them as a terrorist state. There are vast swathes of people who are against this war who are Islamist
But there are lots of people that are against this war that are worried about American taxpayer money being wasted.
Yeah, fine. They should be worried more about getting nuked off the face of the earth by the Islamists. Benjamin Butterworth, what's your take on all this?
There is something unique about the danger that Iran poses. And that's that when you talk about Russia or China, for example, you have this idea of mutually assured destruction. They wouldn't use their nuke on the West because we would do it back, and possibly even worse. When it comes to the Iranian regime and its Islamist tendencies, its Islamist instincts, they believe that there is something up there that will justify any destruction that they can do. And so that's why Iran is more dangerous and more unpredictable than other foes of the West. It's also the case that we have been grotesquely naive for decades in the West. You know, I have reported on people in London who have, there's one guy, a Jewish person, hails from the Middle East, and he was told by police a couple of years ago that he couldn't walk with his grandchildren because there was a threat that they would be killed by Iranian agents in London. A friend of mine who lived in central London was nearly kidnapped on the streets of Covent Garden by an Iranian agent. And so there has been a form of war by Iran to the West going on for years. But I think when you come to what's actually happening right now, the goal is to take out their nuclear capability, to stop them being the sponsor of terrorism, and to stop this evil regime that kills its people and that frankly has very little in relation with Iranian culture historically. But we're not doing that. You know, the regime looks to be stronger than ever. Some more extreme elements seem to have come to the fore in Iran, and it's damaging the Western economy. And so I think there has to be some kind of mediation in this, in which Trump has a little less ego, and you come back to the playing board in 6 months' time, a year, with a better way to get rid of that regime.
OK, yeah, well said. Reem, do you take Ben's point there about there being something very distinct and different about the Islamist threat? I mean, let me ask you this question. Do you agree the Islamist threat is the biggest threat to the West? More so than Russia, more so than China?
The biggest, I mean, it's absolutely a massive threat. I'd have to look into every single threat.
Well, the MI5 watch list is mostly jihadis, so there's that for starters.
Islamism is absolutely a massive problem, especially in the United Kingdom. And the vast number of Islamist sympathisers, I do think, is a massive problem. I mean, you see it with a lot of the pro-Palestine protests.
Right, well,
you see a lot of useful idiots. However, what we're talking about here, we agree that Islamism is a massive problem. And we agree that the Iranian regime
the biggest problem.
Is a massive problem. But the question is whether or not in this war we are actually going to see regime change. I'm worried that this war is actually going to make things far worse because the new leadership in Iran are perhaps even more radical.
I don't care, just bomb them all, just finish the job, turn the screw and just get rid of them. Send them to see their virgins in the masters.
But that's not what's currently happening. So you agree that what Trump is currently doing is not the correct approach?
I don't think really Trump, he said himself he doesn't know who's in charge, what's going on. I think they're playing it day to day, and I support the war, but I will say they've said it was 4 to 6 weeks. I think they don't really know what's going on at the moment. I think
they don't have a plan.
I think they should just turn the screw and finish them off. And by the way, you're talking about Russia and China and everybody else. The Islamist threat is the biggest threat going to the Western civilization in the history of Western civilization. Who did the Manchester Arena?
Muslim.
Islamist.
Yeah.
Who did London Bridge 2017?
Yeah.
Islamist. Who did London Bridge 2019? Islamist.
Yeah, and
Who
I'm not
did Bastille
denying
Day?
that, Ben.
Islamist.
Ben,
Who did the Madrid bombs? Islamist. Who did the Bataclan? Islamist. Who did Charlie Hebdo? Islamist.
The question
not
is
Russians,
whether or
not Chinese.
American taxpayer money ought to be spent on a war against a regime that perhaps won't even fall. Are we going to see regime change? Are we going to see the Iranian people liberated after this war? I'm not confident that we are going to see that.
I'm a U.S. taxpayer, and I am perfectly fine with what's going on right now to secure the United States in the world.
And polling suggests that most of America don't agree with you.
Okay. Let's lighten up the mood a little bit. Talking about your old boss, Matt, Marco Rubio, from foreign policy to the dance floor. Last night he swapped speeches for spin sets. He's DJing, basically. He was filmed behind the decks at a family wedding in Florida, and the guests seemed to be absolutely loving it. Take a look. Matt, I feel like he's not really DJing, is he?
Hey, look, listen, for a Secretary of State, he's the best DJ I've seen. He's the best DJ I've seen in terms of being a Secretary of State. Now, look, I think he looked like he's having a great time. You know, these are stressful jobs. You know,
have you spoken to him recently?
Well, you know, look, he's on the road. He's you know, somebody who obviously is traveling quite a bit. But you know, at the same time, I think that's genuine. You know, somebody who's big into music. You know, you need an outlet when you're doing these jobs. For him, I remember during the campaign. In 2016, running against Donald Trump at that time, his biggest outlet, I think one of them, I should say, I don't want to speak for him, but from what I could tell, was music. It was his way. Yeah, I don't know about that, but that's President Trump's song. But you know, President Trump has golf. You know, you have to have some kind of an outlet in these jobs when you're going as hard as these individuals are. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, these are tough jobs to do, no question about it.
You know what? I just like seeing politicians look like real people. I hate it.
What's your problem with Trump then?
When you see, I don't mind Trump as a person. I mean, I don't like some of his policies, but I like it when politicians have a bit of humour, a bit of charm. It's why I think Nigel Farage is so charming.
Well,
he stands there with a pint in his hand and he's like, "Hello, how are you? You all having a good time?" Has a little bit of a dance at the GBNews party, at conferences. He'd always be on the dance floor dancing with everyone. I love that.
Yeah,
be a real person. The worst thing, and I think this is why Keir Starmer just comes across as so stiff. He doesn't seem like somebody that will join karaoke and have a pint with you, does he?
Yeah.
He's not going to come and say, you know what, Reem, do you want to have a gin and tonic and have a little dance? No, he's just boring.
Have you drunk tonight?
No. I haven't. I'm just happy to be here with
Any
you.
Red Bulls?
I've had 5 coffees.
5 coffees, all right. Okay, yeah, I mean, having a bit of personality and character, that's half the battle won. That's why Boris Johnson got so far. Absolutely useless on policy, but he could have a conversation and make people laugh, so that's 50% of the battle done. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. The Supreme Court has temporarily reinstated nationwide access to an abortion drug, blocking a ruling that threatened to upend accessibility of the pill involved in nearly 2/3 of pregnancy terminations across the country. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is recovering from pneumonia. That's according to his spokesperson. His condition is understood to be critical but stable. Elsewhere, Britney Spears pleaded guilty to reckless driving involving alcohol and drugs. The 44-year-old former pop star was charged with a single misdemeanor count of driving under the combined influence of alcohol and at least one drug. A rep for the singer said she'd voluntarily checked into rehab after the arrest. And Princess Eugenie is expecting her 3rd child with husband Jack Brooksbank. They already have 2 sons together, and their new child, son or daughter, yet to be announced, will come this summer. The King is said to be delighted. Right, celebrities are tonight boycotting the Met Gala after it was co-hosted and sponsored by Jeff Bezos and his wife Lauren Sanchez. High-profile names including Meryl Streep and Zendaya are among those not attending. Here's some pictures from a bit earlier, latest pictures. It's in New York, I think, isn't it? Critics say the billionaire has bought his way in, Jeff Bezos, with activists staging protests near the venue, and the backlash stems from Amazon's alleged breaches of employee rights and their alignment with the Trump administration after producing and releasing Melania Trump's recent documentary, which was on Amazon Prime. Zohan Mamdani, New York's commie Muslim mayor, also confirmed he's not attending the event. Well, what a loss to the event that Mamdani's not going.
What a shame.
Somebody to help me here. What is the Met Gala? What is this about?
I don't really know, if I'm being honest.
It's about fashion, is it?
Look, I'm not big on Met Gala, but what I can tell you is this. You know, there's plenty of celebrities who are going to be there, number one. So even though some are skipping, I think Beyonce and others are co-chairing or chairing the event. And as for Jeff Bezos, I mean, look, his alignment with President Trump seems to be, by and large, the reason why many of these celebrities are boycotting this. But I got to be honest with you, I think the American people are fed up with celebrities getting involved in politics. I really do.
Yes.
I think that, you know what, celebrities have their role to play, whether it's being in music or in movies, whatever it is.
Is that Nicki Minaj?
It probably is. But, look, stick to that. And if you want to get involved with politics, you can as a citizen. But don't be, boycotting events just because you have someone there who you politically disagree with. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that the problem is the complete demonization of wealthy people. The idea that Jeff Bezos, as a billionaire, is somehow a bad person because he was successful and created value in the world, I think is fundamentally the problem. They're effectively saying, we don't like this man because he's a billionaire. Well, let me tell you something. Every single celebrity would be nowhere if it wasn't for the billionaires that fund the industry, if it wasn't for the billionaires that sponsor adverts that mean that these movies are able to be produced. Celebrities would not have a job. Hollywood would not exist if it wasn't for billionaires.
Well, and Americans nationwide. Look, you can demonize billionaires and millionaires like a mayor did out in Seattle, or other Democrat mayors around the country, like politicians in New York.
Look at this guy here. Who is it? It looks like a Power Ranger. What is this?
Look at this.
Listen, I'm not. I'm the wrong person to ask about the Met Gala. Let's put it that way.
All right, let's speak to friend of the show, political commentator Thomas Corbett-Dillon. Thomas, well, what is this? What's going on here? What is the Met Gala? I just don't understand this. What is it?
Basically, it seems to be Vogue's big sort of annual event that they get together. It's raising funds for the Met gallery that do like fashion and things. But what it basically is just a big old event for rich people to get together and sort of pat themselves on the back. But yeah, this boycott is kind of crazy because, yeah, you said the real reason here is that Amazon never dared to, do anything with Trump. And that seems to be the reason because, of course, all these celebrities have said, it's because of the bad working environments at Amazon. And I'm like, well, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all of these big brands are known for using like slave labor and things. They've all sponsored it. Apple, of course, one of those famous ones that uses child labor. They've been a previous sponsor. No one cared. But this year, Amazon dared to do anything with Trump. So now it's a big problem.
Thomas, I don't know if you can see these pictures. Do you know who any of these people are?
I don't. I'm not. I think it's Cardi B. I'm not a celebrity guy, but they're all sort of upper echelons. I mean, I was watching the red carpet and I thought the same. Are we sure?
Joe, right there, Joe.
Oh, I think Thomas has been taken out by the Illuminati for daring to criticise celebrities. We'll get him back in just a second. I don't know who Cardi B. I know she's a pop star. Hello, Thomas. Sorry, mate. Carry on.
Yeah, I don't know where any of these celebrities are. I can't recognise anyone. So yeah, it's a disappointing show, I think.
Yeah. Well, you looked better than this lot on the night of the shooting last weekend at the White House Correspondents with your suit and your dicky tie. I know you had a few drinks, but you looked far better than they did.
Not as many as I planned to. That was a ruined evening, but hopefully we'll be back there at the gala soon.
All right, Thomas, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Come back on the show soon, and I'll see you around DC. Thank you, Thomas Corbett-Dillon.
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
I met Thomas at a bar in DC without knowing who he was. He came over to me and he heard that I had a British accent. He said, "Hi, are you British?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm British." And then he was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "What do you do?" He said, "Oh, sometimes I go on GB." I said, "Sometimes I go on GBNews." And then we realised that we hadn't met before, but
you're on the same show.
On the same show,
yeah. Yeah, he's a great lad.
But just a random bar in DC.
Oh, well, it must have been quite recently because you've only arrived, what, a month
3 months
or two?
ago,
3 months
yeah.
ago. Yeah, he's a good lad, Thomas. Right, let's move on. What's next? Let's look at the front page of the... Actually, Benjamin, first of all, maybe you're interested in the Met Gala. Any thoughts on those celebrities? Cardi B, I'm sure she's got some lyrics that we can relate to.
Well, I mean, clearly I'm interested in fashion, as you can tell from my outfit. I have to say, I mean, Cardi B, I think, is amazing. But I think this talk of the boycott is kind of exaggerated, because lots of the names has been the fact that Meryl Streep apparently turned down the opportunity to co-chair the event. But apparently she's never been to the Met Gala because she says fashion just isn't her world. I think some of the criticism, though, of Bezos, it's not about the fact that he's a billionaire, or maybe it is from some people, but that's not the only thing. It's this idea that if you just have the most extraordinary amount of money, that you can then buy up popular culture. And I think that's a bit grim. You know, Anna Wintour, who is, you know, one of the greatest British journalists there have been, I'm sure, but she's kind of being a sellout to hand it over to Lauren Sanchez Bezos, Jeff Bezos' wife, who, quite frankly, is not a fashion icon to anyone. She is terribly dressed. She looks a mess, living proof that money cannot buy style. And the idea that they can just march in and buy up culture, I think, is pretty grim. What you're looking at is the devil owns Prada, not the devil wears Prada, and I think that's a really legitimate criticism.
OK, well said. I'm sure Jeff Bezos still finds his wife attractive, though, Ben?
I'm sure she does. I'm not an expert in finding women attractive, I will be honest with you. But I just think it's a bit grim. You know, culture and art and fashion, it's meant to come from the ground up, and I'm not sure that's what this represents. Also, you know, these tickets, each one of these celebrities pays $100,000 just to get through the door, so it's a very expensive night.
Is that Rihanna? She looks like an onion bargee.
Are you asking me if...
and the guy next... the guy next to her looks like a pink wafer. You know, the wafer you have with a cup of tea. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I love your comparisons. These are fantastic.
What is Rihanna?
What item of food does that guy look like?
I don't know. I've had enough of this. Get this off. Let's talk about something else. Let's look at the front page of The Sun, which is reporting really good news, actually. This is fantastic news. The number of small boat arrivals is expected to hit 2,000 tomorrow, since they started crossing some years ago. Yeah, I mean, I've got 200,000 engineers, doctors, architects, future generations of making Britain great. 200,000 people. Just one more small boat arrivals and we'll hit 200k. Record toll is the size of York.
A 20-year-old and I think it was a 16-year-old, both women were just found dead.
Awful. They died on the boat.
Yeah.
And if you, so Matt Terrell, you maybe won't know about this, all viewers and listeners. So one boat crossing from France a couple of days ago, there was a 16-year-old Sudanese girl on board and a woman slightly older, maybe 20s, who somehow mysteriously died on board the boat, and their bodies were thrown into the channel.
That's awful.
Before the boat went,
so these men on the boat killed these women, and we don't know how or what happened to them, whether or not they were attempting to discard evidence of some other crime. God forbid, I have no idea what it may have been, but I remember seeing that and just thinking, you know, the fact that the French police allow these people to cross illegally, knowing full well what these people may be capable of, and indeed the danger that these women are under, and we know the majority of the people that cross are men. What happened to these women?
Yeah.
What happened to this 20-year-old and 16-year-old Sudanese woman? What happened to them?
Well, people said the boat went back to France, and I was making the point, well, look, these perpetrators, whoever killed the women, if they did indeed kill the women, they will soon be on their way to Britain. But Benjamin, people were saying, well, no, because the boat's gone back to France. Yeah, but they're just going to try again. At some point, they're going to be getting into Britain. These are the types of people we're welcoming in.
Well, I hate that we shouldn't welcome them in. I mean, the thing is that it is not just a security failing that these people come in without any vetting or evidence of who they may really be. It's also a complete moral failing, because whether it's these two women that may have been actively harmed by others, or through the consequence of the channel being incredibly dangerous, you are letting people die on the channel by allowing them to continue crossing. And then the other part is that the people who organise these boats, you know, the most evil people on the face of the earth, because often the thousands of pounds that they pay, they don't have that up front, and they go into slave labour under the radar and can be abused for years. And so, you know, that's why it's a moral argument to stop this happening, as well as the fact that it's obviously a threat to security that we don't know who they are.
I think that's actually a really key point to making here, that it's the morality of this. You know, whether or not these are all, you know, young fighting age men, or if they are young women, some mothers, perhaps some children, it's immoral to allow them to try and cross and enter the country illegally and in an extraordinarily unsafe route.
Yeah, and it also says on the front page of the Sun there, only 7,612 get deported. I haven't read the article in full, but maybe they were referring to, of the 200,000 cohort, only 7k have been deported. Now, the government would say, well, actually, we've deported 40,000 illegal migrants. But as I said on the show last night, they are the low-hanging fruit, Vietnamese, nail bar workers, maybe, you know, they shouldn't be here, fine. But, you know, the worst they'll do is probably do a cannabis grow in a house somewhere or be working illegally in a nail bar. They are not the people, and I'm going to go back to the Islamist thing, they are not the people that, for the most part, British citizens are worried about. Benjamin?
Well, I suppose the 200,000 figure and 7,000 being deported, I guess this is the number, I think, that have come over since Labour came into power. And so there's a processing time to process their claims and to deport them. So hopefully...
It's before that. It's 71,000 since Labour took power, and it's around 200,000 since the crisis started in around 2018, I think.
I see. I mean, it's obviously far too high a number. But, you know, the fact is that it takes time for these people to be processed, and that time needs to be improved. But some of them have legitimate claims to be here, and those are approved. There should be legal routes for these people so that they're not in a boat.
Yeah, OK. Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate it. A Home Office spokesperson said this government is bearing down on small boat crossings. We've removed or deported almost 60,000 people who were here illegally. The Home Secretary has announced the most sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration in modern times, removing incentives that bring illegal migrants to the UK and scaling up the return of those with no right to be here. Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Reem, thank you.
Thank you.
Benjamin, thank you. Good to see you back. I've forgotten where you've gone. Where did you go? Very quickly.
Cuba, to the communist land of Cuba.
That was it. Commies. All right. Enjoy your week. Thank you very much. And viewers and listeners, thank you as well for sticking with us on the Late Show Live. Sweet dreams. Bev is back tomorrow. I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll be at the White House tomorrow, probably reporting. So sweet dreams. Good night. Sleep well and have a good day tomorrow. Bye. Bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bright start out there for most of us, but cloud will bubble up as the day goes on, and for all of us, certainly feeling cooler than it has done over the bank holiday weekend. So as I mentioned, plenty of brightness around first thing this morning, but showers already developing across northern and western parts of the country. And as the day goes on, the cloud will bubble up almost everywhere across the UK. Sunshine at a premium during the middle of the day, but most of us generally stay in dry, but there will still be a few showers around. And note the temperature is certainly down, still potentially reaching the high teens though across the far south of England. Into the afternoon rush hour, and actually things will begin to cheer up again across parts of Scotland. Some sunshine returning here. Still a few showers around, especially across the northern and western Isles. And a very similar story for Northern Ireland. Sunshine returning here, but unfortunately for the main bulk of England and Wales, we will hang on to some cloud and again some spits and spots of rain, although it may well be a fairly cheery end to the day down towards the far southwest of England. Overnight, we will see a lot of the cloud begin to clear away to the south. That will allow plenty of clear skies, especially across more northern parts of the country, and that will allow us to see a fairly widespread frost to develop in the countryside, so gardeners and growers beware of that. Further south, temperatures probably hanging on into mid-single figures in the countryside. So we start Wednesday off on a fairly bright note across the east. Further west we will see some showers, but as the day goes on we will start to pick up some cloud across many eastern areas, maybe some spits and spots of rain too. So come the afternoon, best of the sunshine more towards the western half of the country, although some rain returning up across the very far northwest of Scotland. Temperatures on Wednesday down on Tuesday, potentially only up to the mid-teens across the very far south of England.
Today, Clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very, very